Chapter 1093. Tan Xiao was well aware of Jin Shi and Chen Zhizhong's strength, so he wasn't worried about them. He just watched Wei Xianyong quietly with a smile, waiting for him to make his move. Whoosh! Wei Xianyong's speed was as fast as lightning. He appeared in front of Tan Xiao in an instant. A golden glove appeared on his right hand as he fiercely slammed it toward Tan Xiao's head. Comparable to the golden core stage. A disdainful look appeared on Tan Xiao's face. The blood guzzler dagger instantly appeared in his hand and pierced Wei Xianyong's body before his palm hit Tan Xiao's head. At the same time, violent primal chaos force crazily poured into Wei Xianyong's body through the dagger. What? Wei Xianyong's complexion drastically changed and his eyes revealed a look of horror. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Tan Xiao's speed would reach such an unimaginable level. He simply didn't have the time to react and was already injured. However, in less than half a second, his expression turned into despair because the violent primal chaos force was too overbearing. After entering his body, it directly wreaked havoc and turned his insides into a mess. Pain. It had been more than a decade since Wei Xianyong tasted this kind of heart-wrenching and lung-splitting pain. His body violently retreated backward, only to find that Tan Xiao was like a maggot attached to his bones. His seemingly slow figure was, in fact, extremely fast. A huge force bombarded his chest. He could clearly feel that his sternum was broken, and two of his sternum even pierced his heart. Isn't he too terrifying? A cultivator? At least a cultivator at the nascent soul stage. Damn! The look of despair on Wei Xianyong's face became more and more intense. As blood spurted out, his head was hit by a huge fist. As he was sent flying in a daze, he could feel every part of his body receiving heavy blows. Every punch seemed to weigh thousands of kilograms, worsening his injuries and worsening them. Bam! 10 seconds later, Tan Xiao clapped his hands, a faint smile still hanging on his face as he watched Wei Xianyong fly out more than 10 meters like a dead dog, heavily smashing into the cold concrete floor. He did not directly kill Wei Xianyong, but he directly crippled him. Now, all the bones in his body had been broken by him, and he was lying on the ground like a pile of mud, unable to get up. My lord! Bastard! Upon seeing this, 4 or 5 of Wei Xianyong's subordinates pounced on Tan Xiao in a frenzy. They were almost ready to perish together with Tan Xiao in an attempt to kill him. A firefly dares to compete with the bright moon? Tan Xiao glanced at them disdainfully. He instantly took out his divine sword. Layers of sword shadows were like roaring waves, directly drowning them. As the sword shadows dissipated, Tan Xiao kept the divine sword back into his body. Only pieces of flesh were scattered on the ground. At the side, Jin Shi's moves were ruthless and deadly. In just half a minute, he had killed 6 or 7 of Wei Xianyong's men. Even if Chen Zhizhong's memory was obscured, his strength was still there, especially his powerful physique that had reached an appalling level. Every time he brandished his spear, he could inflict heavy damage to his opponents. In just half a minute, he had successfully killed 4 or 5 people. Die! The last of Wei Xianyong's men was struck and killed by Jin Shi and Chen Zhizhong at the same time. Both of them quickly came to Tan Xiao's side and vigilantly observed the surroundings. In other areas, Duan Mulin quickly walked inside the clubhouse. When he saw many members of the Darkwind organization, who tried to resist, lying limply on the ground and couldn't even crawl up, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Unbelievable. He had fantasized about countless possibilities, even the possibility that Tan Xiao had set up an ambush in the clubhouse. But he never thought that these Darkwind members would be paralyzed on the ground like they were poisoned and lost the ability to resist. Slashing them like watermelons. At this moment, Duan Mulin finally understood what Tan Xiao meant. With the current state of these Darkwind members, they were just like slashing watermelons and could be slashed at will. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure flashed from a distance and was only a dozen meters away from Duan Mulin. An enemy? A chilling light flashed in Duan Mulin's eyes. After confirming that the other party was not from the Special Abilities Bureau or Tan Xiu's men, he immediately unleashed his special ability to kill them. Don't do it. They're on our side. Guo Tao had already noticed that the Special Abilities Bureau and Tang sex experts were killing the Dark Wind members inside the clubhouse, so he avoided them and looked for Tan Xiu's traces everywhere. He didn't want to be misunderstood and killed by those powerhouses just because Tan Xiu wasn't here. Duanmu Lin's expression shifted and he coldly stared at the vigilant Guo Tao and shouted, "You said you're on our side?" "I'm Guo Tao, Senior," said Guo Tao quickly. "I'm Tan Xiu, Boss Tang's man and your insider. It was us who drugged the Dark Wind members' meals and turned them into this state. You can ask Boss Tang if you don't believe me. He'll tell you the truth." Duanmu Lin narrowed his eyes. He already believed Guo Tao's words, but he still took out his mobile phone to call Tan Xiu just to be safe. After getting confirmation from Tan Xiu, he nodded with satisfaction and said, "You're good. A wise man submits to circumstances. You can live a long life if you don't associate with the Dark Wind. I'll reward you and Wenfeng on behalf of the State Special Abilities Bureau after this matter is over." Guo Tao felt a bit relieved and said, "I didn't expect you to be from the State Special Abilities Bureau, Senior. Wenfeng and I were threatened by the Dark Wind before, saying that they would kill us if we didn't work for them. We had no other choice but to become their lackeys. But it's different now. As long as our country can wipe out the Dark Wind's forces in the country, we can live in peace and never work for them again. You made the right decision." Duanmu Lin nodded. "Now tell me, where's Wang Sheng?" "I don't know." Guo Tao shook his head. Halfway through the banquet, Wang Sheng was nowhere to be found. "I've secretly sent some people to look for him, but they couldn't find any trace of him." Duanmu Lin's expression slightly changed and he said in a deep voice, "Follow me to find Wang Sheng's trail. No matter what, we can't let him escape today." Guo Tao understood what Duanmu Lin was thinking. The reason why Duanmu Lin wanted to find Wang Sheng was because of the list of all the members of the Dark Wind in China. But Wang Sheng's most resounding nickname in the Dark Wind organization was the 100 Faces Gentleman. Although he appeared in front of everyone today, who could guarantee that he was using his real face? Even if Duanmu Lin had seen him before and he had the same appearance, it was possible that Wang Sheng just used this face to meet his subordinates and then changed his appearance. Inside the space barrier, Tangan was vigilantly observing the surroundings while her eyes were locked on Wang Sheng, who was under the protection of the 4 middle-aged men. As of now, she had appeared outside the Golden Coast Private Club and had just come out of a tunnel. Inform Macallan to take the list of the Dark Wind members and leave China immediately. At the same time, activate the alarm system and notify every member of the Dark Wind organization to immediately lie dormant and wait for the restart. Wang Sheng sat in the car and immediately ordered in a deep voice before the car started. However, his confidant, who had also just sat in the front seat, didn't respond. He didn't even close the door and just lowered his head. Wang Sheng furrowed his brows and was about to speak when he saw his confidant's pupils suddenly shrink and fear could be seen in his eyes. What's going on? A bad premonition arose inside Wang Sheng's heart and he immediately asked aloud. He's dead. Before the confidant in the driver's seat could finish his words, his neck was twisted like a fried dough twist and a gurgling sound came from his throat before he died. Fear burst inside Wang Sheng's heart. The enemy he couldn't see made him feel despair. He opened the door lightning fast and pulled out a dagger inlaid with a ruby from his waist. Who is it? Wang Sheng vigilantly glanced around and shouted. His other 2 subordinates also quickly got out of the other car and quickly protected Wang Sheng. Puff! Puff! An immortal sword suddenly appeared out of thin air and directly tore open the throats of Wang Sheng's 2 confidant men before they could react. Then, it pierced their hearts and disappeared into thin air. Aura! Wang Sheng's pupils shrunk. His footsteps were as fast as lightning and he instantly appeared 3 meters away. He swung his arm and fiercely stabbed the ruby-inlaid dagger into the aura fluctuation that he had sensed. Ugh! Along with a muffled groan, the immortal sword once again appeared out of thin air and quickly swept across Wang Sheng's waist. Despite his fast speed, the clothes around his waist were still cut and a bloody wound appeared. Fire! Wang Xing opened his left hand and a fireball appeared out of thin air. He concentrated his spiritual force and sensed the aura fluctuation, ready to attack at any time. It was an invisible person. He had never encountered such a person before. Although his other identity was that of an ability user and he had seen many kinds of abilities, it was his first time encountering a powerhouse who was proficient in invisibility. Heaven and Earth Sword Prison. A faintly discernible voice passed into Wang Xing's ears from all directions. Sword shadows appeared in the air more than 10 meters high. The sword shadows seemed to form an airtight cage that directly shrouded Wang Xing from top to bottom. The power of such an attack wasn't that great. Scram! Wang Xing didn't retreat but charged forward instead. He proudly sprinted upward and blasted the fireball in his hand. Clusters of flames appeared out of thin air and shrouded the area within a radius of more than 10 meters in a sea of fire. Tang En's figure appeared out of thin air. She was wearing a black night suit and a bronze mask. She didn't utter any words and just performed some hand seals, causing flames to appear in the surrounding sea of fire. Chapter 1094. Aside from Gu Yan, and Ji Qimei, Tan Xiu was the strongest person in the entire Tang sect. Even Xueyu, who had broken through to the spirit formation stage, was no match for Tan Xiu. Aside from these people, the strongest person was Tang En. Not only was she a late-stage Golden Core expert, but she also mastered a space-related secret technique and even had some understanding of the laws of time. Magical arts. There might not be many people in the Tang sect who were proficient in this field, but Tang En was definitely one of them. Not only did she like to study various ancient books on arrays, but she was also very keen on studying magical arts. Her research on some of them had yielded good results. The flame emerging from the sea of fire exuded a deep blue luster. Any cultivator in the immortal world would definitely recognize it at a glance if they saw it. It was the legendary True Flame. Wang Xing's body shook and his eyes nearly popped out. The power displayed by Tang En was already outrageously powerful. Never did he expect that she was also an ability user who was proficient in fire-related abilities. This flame. Wang Xing retreated backward because he was keenly aware that this was definitely not an ordinary flame. Even the flames he released seemed to be forced back the moment the blue flame appeared. Tang En's figure disappeared again, but the immortal sword didn't disappear. It fluttered in the air and blocked all of Wang Xing's escape routes. Get lost! Wang Xing roared furiously. Just as he was about to dodge the immortal sword's attack, his body suddenly turned stiff and he felt a chill on his neck. It was a dagger that appeared out of thin air and was placed on his neck. Follow me. After Tang En appeared at Wang Xing's side, her cold voice entered his ears. The massacre in the Golden Coast progressed very quickly. All the members of the Dark Wind organization who tried to resist were killed in cold blood. Dozens of members who chose to surrender were crippled and knocked out, and then brought to the square by more than a dozen experts of the Special Abilities Bureau to be detained. When Tan Xiu and Duan Mulin came to the square, Tan Xiu could clearly see the smile on Duan Mulin's face. Senior Duanmu. Tan Xiu called out with a smile. Duan Mulin nodded with satisfaction and said, I didn't expect you to do better than I expected, Tan Xiu. You disintegrated the enemy from the inside and then easily destroyed them. These two defecting members of the Dark Wind are very good and deserve a good reward. Tan Xiu calmly glanced at Guo Tao and Wen Feng, then calmly said, Senior Duanmu is right. They have made a great contribution this time. I will reward them later. Duan Mulin nodded slightly and looked around. Then, the smile on his face slowly disappeared. He even frowned and asked, Did you find any traces of Wang Xing? Zhu Long shook his head and said, I didn't find him. It's as if he disappeared into thin air. However, he should still be in the club, because just 10 minutes ago, someone saw him. Find him. Duan Mulin ordered in a deep voice. You must find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Tan Xiu's expression shifted as he shook his head and said, No need. What do you mean? Asked Duan Mulin, confused. Just as he finished asking, two figures appeared in front of him out of thin air. One was Tang'an, who was wearing a black night suit and a bronze mask, and the other was Wang Sheng, who was obviously seriously injured. This is... Duan Mulin was ecstatic after seeing Wang Sheng's appearance. He sincerely admired Tan Xiu at this moment. Not only was Tan Xiu's strength formidable, but even his men were also ridiculously strong. He originally thought that Wang Sheng would escape, but he didn't expect that he would be captured by Tan Xiu's men. Tan Xiu's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's minds. After glancing at Duan Mulin's face, he instantly appeared in front of Wang Sheng and released a burst of energy to hit more than a dozen acupoints on Wang Sheng's body. After completely restraining him, he took 2 steps back and smilingly said, "You're the chief intelligence officer of the Dark Wind in China?" Wang Sheng stared at Tan Xiu and was silent for more than 10 seconds. Then, he slowly said, "You should be able to see the condition of my body. I've lost most of my vitality and can only hold on for a few minutes at most. If you can't get the answer you want in a few minutes, I'm afraid you won't get another chance." Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "You might have some effect if you said that to someone else, but it's meaningless to me. Wang Sheng, you should know about my existence since you're the chief intelligence officer of the Dark Wind in China. Even the most detailed information about me has been placed in front of you. Am I right?" A strange light flashed in Wang Sheng's eyes as he nodded and said, "You're right. I did read a lot of information about you, so I know you. Then, have you forgotten my identity?" Tan Xiu chuckled. "A Chinese medicine practitioner?" Wang Sheng's expression shifted and a bad premonition grew inside his heart. He then asked in a deep voice, "What do you mean? Since you've already guessed it, then why waste your breath to ask?" Tan Xiu sneered. "My subordinate may have seriously injured you, but she received my order not to kill you. Hence, the reason why your vitality is fading so fast is because you're trying to commit suicide without her noticing. But I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, so you won't die even if you try your best to do so." Damn! Wang Sheng's expression twisted. He was indeed committing suicide, and he even used some special means to destroy his vitality. But Tan Xiu's words made him feel a sense of dread. He wasn't afraid of death, but he was afraid of living a life worse than death. Tang Xiu squinted his eyes and mentally ravaged Wang Sheng again. "Also, you know something about my identity, but you don't know much about it. You don't know my identity as a cultivator, do you? To tell you the truth, I've already killed that old way of your Dark Wind organization. He's just a weak golden core stage cultivator, yet he dared to be so arrogant in front of me. He deserved to die." "That's impossible!" Wang Sheng screamed and the fear on his face turned more intense. "Impossible?" Tan Xiu sneered. "Ha ha ha, how can ants like you understand the means of this, Tan Xiu? There's one thing I must tell you. I'm a cultivator, and I have many means that you can't even imagine. One of them is the soul-scouring art. Even if you're dead, I can search your memory within 5 minutes and get the answer I want from your brain." The soul-scouring art? The extremely sinister means in the legends? A secret art that only those devils can master. Oh God! If what he said was true, then he wouldn't be able to keep the organization's secret even if he died now. He knew too much, and it would cause great harm to the entire Dark Wind organization once his memory was easily read. "Kill me!" Wang Sheng abruptly raised his head and roared at the night sky. Tan Xiu's complexion changed. He noticed that Tang'an had disappeared into thin air in an instant. He instantly unleashed the divine sword inside his body and formed a series of sword images that blotted out the sky and crazily stirred up the sky. At this moment, a ghostly figure appeared amidst the layers of sword images. He was wearing a black night suit and a golden mask with a lump of iron on his back. Boom! The violent blast instantly blew dozens of people in the surroundings. Even those experts who were comparable to Foundation establishment stage experts had to endure the suffocating feeling in their chest and constantly retreated backward. The mysterious skinny man with the golden mask looked like a lonely boat in the raging sea as he was sent flying upside down in the sword tide, spraying blood everywhere. A sharp throwing knife hit Tan Xiu's chest. The clothes on Tan Xiu's chest exploded, but the throwing knife only left a faint mark on it and didn't even pierce his skin. Interesting. Like a shadow, Tan Xiu dashed to the front of the mysterious man in a flash. Had it not been for his fast reaction, the throwing knife would have hit Wang Xing's head instead of his chest. Silencing the witness. Such ruthlessness was the style of the Dark Wind organization. Tan Xiu admired the man's forbearance. The fact that he was able to endure until the last moment before making his move was very likely because he had heard what he just said to Wang Xing. That's impossible. The mysterious man's voice was very hoarse as he exclaimed while retreating. He was well aware of his own strength. He was an expert at the golden core stage, yet the throwing knife he shot out with all his might only left a shallow mark on Tan Xiu's body. It didn't even pierce his skin, which was beyond his imagination. The divine sword in Tan Xiu's hand flashed lightning fast toward the mysterious man and heavily injured him again, leaving a bloody wound of more than 10 centimeters on his body. He then sneered and said, "It's true that I'm a cultivator, but I don't cultivate true essence. I'm a demon god body refinement cultivator, so you can consider me as a body cultivator. Unless you have reached the late stage of the gold core realm, and you need to have a divine weapon to be able to harm me, otherwise, you will not be a threat to me at all." Puff! As his voice faded away, the divine sword swept again and directly cut the man's waist the moment the man showed a fearful expression. A pained look emerged on Wang Xing's face as he watched the scene in midair. He was well aware of some special arrangements in the Dark Wind organization. Every Terminator who was assigned to a country and was responsible for all intelligence in that country would be assigned a Terminator by their side. However, his father was one of the founders of the Dark Wind organization, and his words were definitely among the top 3 in the organization's top brass. He could be considered as a powerful figure. Before he was sent to the kingdom of Huaxia, his father had solemnly promised him that while the other leaders had Terminators following them, there would never be one by his side. His father said that he trusted him and that he wouldn't betray him. It turns out that father doesn't trust anyone, including his own son. Wang Xing felt a heart-wrenching pain. He would never betray his father because his father was the person he respected and worshipped the most in the world. He even chose to commit suicide to keep the secret of the Dark Wind organization for his father. However, he soon realized that he was wrong. Chapter 1095. Wang Xing realized that his father didn't trust him at all. The Terminator arranged by him was also a top-notch expert in the organization's Terminator team. He could already imagine that if this Terminator had appeared when he was attacked by that elusive woman, his chances of being caught would have been much lower. Tan Xiu. Wang Xing's state of mind was rapidly changing. He looked at Tan Xiu who was descending from the sky with a resolute look in his eyes and said in a deep voice, "I'll tell you everything you want to know." Tan Xiu looked at Wang Xing with a surprised expression and asked, "Is it because of the assassin who just wanted to kill you?" A chilling light flashed in Wang Xing's eyes as he nodded and said, "That's right. I'm a high-ranking member of the Dark Wind and have made great contributions to the organization all these years. Yet not only did that Terminator not help me, he even wanted to kill me when I was in a desperate situation. Such an organization is not worth keeping a secret for. There's also my father. Since he can even give up his own son, then..." "You mean your father?" asked Tan Xiu with a frown. "Who is he?" "He's Wang Xian, one of the 3 founders of the Dark Wind organization," answered Wang Sheng. Tan Xiu was shaken inwardly and quickly exchanged glances with the shocked Duan Mulin. Then, he asked in a deep voice, "You said your father is one of the founders of the Dark Wind organization? So, as his son, you should know a lot of secrets of the Dark Wind organization, right?" "That's right. I know a lot of things." Wang Xing nodded. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then, he took out a holy healing pill from his interspatial ring and quickly stuffed it into Wang Xing's mouth. Then, he said in a deep voice, "This pill is enough to guarantee your survival. We won't kill you, but you must cooperate with us." The Dark Wind organization is a big threat to both China and me. We need to understand this organization and have a way to guard against it. Life and death are meaningless to me now. Wang Xing let out a bitter smile. Even if you don't kill me, I'm afraid I can only be a cripple. Your men are quite ruthless. Being soft-hearted to the enemy is the same as being cruel to yourself, said Tan Xiu lightly. I hope you can understand. If you can cooperate with me, although I can't restore your strength, I can guarantee that your injuries will be healed. You can live the rest of your life as an ordinary person. Wang Xing observed Tan Xiu for a long while and slowly said, It's not a problem if you want me to fully cooperate with you. But I need you to answer a question for me. If you can answer me seriously, I'll tell you everything I know about the Dark Wind organization. Ask away. Tan Xiu nodded. Wang Xing asked, Since you're proficient in the soul-searching art, why don't you just search my soul? Looking through my memories? Because in this way, you can guarantee that I won't hide anything from you and won't lie to you. Tan Xiu pondered for a while and shook his head. The soul-searching art has its drawbacks. Even if I can check your memory, it will still affect me. After all, I'm using my divine sense to observe your past life, so your character will affect me. Further, I don't have enough time. My current strength is still too weak, so it's a bit unrealistic to read all your memories in a short time. But it'll waste a lot of time if I read your memory for a long time. You're still holding back. Wang Xing shook his head. You're very smart. It's not an exaggeration to say that you're wise and farsighted, praised Tan Xiu. I'm indeed holding back. Once I cast the soul-searching art on you, it'll cause chaos in your memory and turn you into an idiot even if you don't die. Further, the memory obtained by the soul-searching art won't be complete. Some of the content will be scattered due to your long time of death, which will easily cause a lot of important information to be lost. Wang Xing suddenly understood and forced a wry smile. It's better to die than to live like an idiot. Alright, I've asked all my questions and got the answer I wanted to know. Just ask me directly if you have any questions. No hurry. Tan Xiu waved and said, We'll have plenty of time to have a long talk after we're done here. After saying that, he then looked at Duanmu Lin and said, Senior Duanmu, what happened tonight was very secretive, so I don't think it's spread out. You'd better block the news immediately and make sure that no outsider will know what happened here for at least a few days. Duanmu Lin nodded and said, I understand. But I need the list of all the members of the Dark Wind in China. The list is in the Fukang Province HQ, said Wang Sheng. Let's head to Fukang Province at once, then, said Duanmu Lin. I don't want to go back anymore. Wang Xing shook his head and said, Give me a call and I'll send someone to deliver the list. Don't worry. That man is absolutely loyal to me and nothing will go wrong. Tan Xiu, Duanmu Lin looked at Tan Xiu, wanting to say something but hesitating. Tan Xiu scrutinized Wang Xing a few times and nodded. I think we can choose to believe him. The pain of being abandoned and even betrayed by our own people is really painful. Duanmu Lin gave it a thought and felt that Tan Xiu's words made sense, so he took out his mobile phone and handed it to Wang Sheng. Moreover, he was standing by his side, ready to immediately end the call if Wang Sheng's words were to cause any problems. Nearly all my bones were broken by Tan Xiu's men. Wang Sheng shook his head and said, The reason I could still fight before was due to the support of the power inside my body. But as my injuries became more serious, I'm afraid I can't even hold a piece of paper, let alone a mobile phone. Tan Xiu took the phone and said, Tell me the number. I'll dial it for you. Wang Sheng told Tan Xiu the number of his confidant. As the call was dialed, a deep and low voice quickly came out of the phone. Who is it? It's me, Lu, said Wang Sheng. Go to the HQ's warehouse immediately. There's a locked box in the innermost corner with a list of all the members of our Dark Wind organization in China inside. Take it out and personally send it to Liang'an City. I need it. Understood. Replied the other party respectfully. Wang Xing nodded to Tan Xiu and watched Tan Xiu hang up the phone. Then, he said, You don't need to guard against me. I wouldn't have made that call if I wanted to cheat. You're right. Tan Xiu nodded and said, if you wanted to keep it a secret, I'm afraid you would have done it when you called. Let's go. Let's find a meeting room and have a good talk about the Dark Wind organization. I hope you can tell us everything you know truthfully. I've already made my choice, so I'm already a traitor of the Dark Wind organization, said Wang Xing bitterly. The Dark Wind organization treats traitors extremely cruelly. If you have the ability to destroy the entire Dark Wind organization, I'll be very happy instead. The Dark Wind is a terrifying organization with intelligence agents all over the world. It's absolutely impossible to completely destroy it, said Tan Xiu lightly. So I'm afraid your hopes will be dashed. However, I can assure you that the experts of China's Special Abilities Bureau will protect you for a long time. Your safety will be guaranteed at least for the next few years. Wang Xing nodded without a word. After a short while, Tan Xiu and Duan Mulin then took Wang Xing to a small meeting room inside, followed by Chen Zhizhong and Zhu Long. For the whole day, everyone stayed in the small meeting room. When Tan Xiu and Duan Mulin came out together, their faces had turned a bit unsightly, especially for Tan Xiu. Tang Xiu, in particular, learned a lot of things from Wang Xing, one of which caught him off guard. One of the three leaders of the Dark Wind organization was the grandfather of Angelo Dolan, the former patriarch of House Dolan. Therefore, Tan Xiu realized that the Dark Wind organization must be uprooted if he wanted to get rid of the entire House Dolan. Otherwise, if House Dolan and the Dark Wind were to join hands, the Tang sect would likely suffer huge losses even if they could completely eliminate these big troubles. It's about time. Tan Xiu looked in the direction of the Golden Coast's gate and murmured. Duan Mulin narrowed his eyes and nodded. You're right. It's about time. Tan Xiu, how much of what Wang Xing said today can be trusted and how much is false? I still have the ability to judge whether it's true or false. At least 80% of what he said is true, said Tan Xiu. Or maybe he wants to use our hands to teach the Dark Wind a lesson. Everything he said is true. Duan Mulin didn't utter a word. Just as he walked side by side with Tan Xiu and headed outside, Jin Shi strode over from the distance. Someone wants to see Wang Xing, sect master. He came from Fukang province, reported Jin Shi respectfully. Before Tan Xiu could speak, Duan Mulin hurriedly asked, where is he? He's at the edge of the pond ahead, answered Jin Shi. Quickly. The few of them saw the burly man and saw a vigilant look in his eyes. Did you bring it? Tan Xiu lightly asked. The strong man asked coldly, who are you? Where's our boss? Your boss is Wang Xing, isn't he? Asked Tan Xiu. He's injured and is now recuperating inside. Give me the list of the members you brought and I'll send someone to bring you to him. I can't give you the list of all the members of the Dark Wind organization in China, said the burly man coldly. I want to see my boss, else I'll immediately activate the self-destruct mechanism of this lockbox and destroy all the intelligence inside. Humph. Tan Xiu coldly snorted and ordered, Jin Shi, bring Wang Xing here. Understood. Jin Shi replied and quickly ran toward the conference room. Chapter 1096. Early in the morning, as the first ray of sunlight rose from the east, the somewhat tired Tan Xiu returned to Shanghai alone. As for Jin Shi, Tang'an, and the Tang sect's experts, they quietly left Liang'an City to continue building the intelligence network. Blue Star Villa Complex. Tan Xiu had just returned when he received a call from Mu Weining. Not long after, Mu Weining arrived and brought him a piece of news that caught him off guard. She's gone. She didn't say where she was going. She just asked me to give you something. Mu Weining opened her bag and took out a beautifully wrapped gift box. A complicated expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he looked at the gift box. He was silent for a moment before he received it and directly put it into his interspatial ring. The past had already come to an end, so there was no need to dwell on it anymore. She had chosen to leave and disappear in her own world. Perhaps this was the best ending for her. Aren't you going to open it and have a look? Asked Mu Weining in surprise. Is it really necessary? Asked Tan Xiu calmly. Mu Weining didn't speak again. She always felt that there was an inexplicable relationship between Tan Xiu and Han Qinggu. She even had the idea that the woman who had hurt Tan Xiu deeply was Han Qinggu. However, she realized that Tan Xiu didn't want to mention Han Qinggu, so she could only suppress her strong curiosity and change the topic. That's right. Do you know something? There's a message on the internet about a patient in Behe province's capital. He's been traveling to Star City and Shanghai several times to find you for treatment, but he hasn't been able to find you. That's why he's looking for you through the internet. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and shook his head. I'm no longer seeing patients, so it's not easy to find me. Besides, I'm not a pure Chinese medicine practitioner, so treating patients and saving people depends on fate. I won't stand idly by if I meet him directly, but I won't go to Behe province if he's looking for me through the internet. I understand. Mu Weining nodded and said, after all, there are too many patients in the world who need to be treated. You'll probably die of exhaustion if every one of them is looking for you through the internet. However, I am very curious. The other party said that if you can cure her mother's illness, she will give you an extremely valuable gift. I really want to know what kind of gift it is. Gift? Tan Xiu shook his head and said, there are many precious things in the world. It's best if you can get it, but if you can't force it. If it's mine, it will naturally appear in my hands. If it's not mine, there's no need to deliberately get it. Forget it. Since you're not interested in this matter, then let's change the topic. What are you going to do next? Are we going back to Nine Dragons Island? Do what? Tan Xiu suddenly felt a little confused. It turned out that there had always been something pushing him, forcing him to do all kinds of things. But now that Mu Weining suddenly asked him, he didn't know what to do next. Back to Nine Dragons Island? He had already arranged everything in Nine Dragons Island, so it didn't make much difference whether he went there or not. The magnificent Tang Corporation was managed by Kang Xia, so he didn't need to worry about it. There were also some trivial matters that were taken care of by others, so there was nothing urgent to deal with for the time being. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's expression, Mu Weining realized that Tan Xiu should be very free, so she smilingly said, you might as well stay in Shanghai if you have nothing urgent to do. I haven't seen you for a long time, so you should stay and accompany me. Tan Xiu thought for a while before he nodded and smilingly said, all right. I'll stay in Shanghai for the time being and wait for something to happen. That's right, how's the operation of your advertising company? Business is booming. Mu Weining chuckled and said, because of you, I received a lot of orders. Later on, those big bosses helped introduce some business to me. Gradually, it seems that many people heard about my relationship with you. So, even big companies from other provinces would come to my company to seek cooperation. You're very busy? Asked Tan Xiu. I'm very busy, but I found a gold manager. Mu Weining shook her head and said, his fame may not be as resounding as Kang Xia's, but he's also a powerful figure in the advertising industry. Therefore, he's the one handling the company's affairs. I don't care about the company's affairs anymore unless there's an important business. Is he very reliable? Tan Xiu was surprised. I poached him from Wall Street, the world's financial center. Mu Weining chuckled. We used to be schoolmates, and his wife and I are very good sisters. He's very trustworthy. Besides, I've been keeping an eye on the finance department, so there won't be any problems. Since you don't need to be busy, then take some time to cultivate. Tan Xiu chuckled. Also, I suddenly recalled something. I'm going to the imperial capital soon, so you should come with me when the time comes. What are you going to do there? Asked Mu Weining curiously. As a cultivator, I can make my family stronger, so I naturally have to do something to make my family members stronger, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You want to impart a cultivation technique to your Tang family? Asked Mu Weining in surprise. That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. I can shelter the Tang family for 10 or 20 years, but I can't shelter them forever. If you want the family to stand tall, outstanding talents must appear generation after generation. Also, your Mu family should also grow a bit stronger. If you're willing, I'll give you a cultivation technique, and you can decide who to impart it to. Mu Weining pondered for a moment before she shook her head and said, not for the time being. Why? Asked Tan Xiu curiously. The cultivation technique is yours, but it must be practiced by the Tang family's members first, said Mu Weining. Only when they reach a certain level can I impart the cultivation technique to the Mu family. Tan Xiu, you don't understand the Mu family. My grandfather may be the one who shakes the entire family, but some people's minds are no longer that pure after living a good life for a long time. Let's not talk about others first, just my father. Tan Xiu was relieved and looked at Mu Weining with some sympathy. He suddenly realized that the Tang family had been very cautious in the storm circle in Shanghai all these years. Not only was it not a bad thing, it was actually a good thing. Without the Yao family's oppression and the covetous eyes of other forces, the Tang family would never be united. Perhaps they would end up like the Mu family with a lot of silk pants, which would cause the Tang family to fall sooner or later. Weining, you're very smart. You know what you can and can't do. I'll leave this matter to you. Mu Weining nodded with a smile and suddenly said, since you're going to stay in Shanghai for some time, why don't you contact the patient on the internet? If they're willing to come to Shanghai, I think you can spare some time to treat them. I'm sure you'll be able to cure them with your medical skills. Tan Xiu gave it a thought and felt that what Mu Weining said was reasonable, so he said with a smile, find out their contact information. I'll give them a call and make an appointment. All right. Mu Weining quickly turned on her mobile and found the post on the internet. She told Tan Xiu the contact information left by the other party and Tan Xiu directly dialed the number. I'm Li Kai. May I ask who's calling? A silvery voice came from the phone. I'm Tan Xiu. Are you looking for me on the internet? Tan Xiu said. The other party was silent for a few seconds and then said, may I ask if you're really Tan Xiu, Divine Dr. Tang? Can you prove your identity? Please forgive me for being presumptuous, but I've received a lot of calls recently. Some people are sympathetic and call to ask about my mother's condition. There are also some people who deliberately make trouble by calling you, Divine Dr. Tang, making my mother and my life even worse. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and said, video call. All right. The other party immediately sounded pleasantly surprised. Quickly. Tan Xiu saw the appearance of the other party through the video call. It was a 16 or 17-year-old girl with delicate features and fair skin. Her eyes, in particular, were very pure and beautiful. Is it really you, Mr. Tang? That's great. That's great. My mother can be saved. Li Kai, who was in the provincial capital of Behe province, immediately looked pleasantly surprised after she saw Tan Xiu's appearance through the video call. Can you tell me about your mother's condition first? Asked Tan Xiu. Also, if your mother really needs my treatment, I'm afraid you'll need to come to Shanghai. No problem. Let's go. Li Kai was ecstatic and resolute. Immediately after, she told him about her mother's condition and finally asked with an expectant expression, Divine Dr. Tang, can you determine what disease my mother has? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. He shook his head and then nodded. I haven't seen the patient yet, so I can't determine what disease your mother has. However, I already have some speculations in my mind. If my guess is correct, she can be treated. I understand what you mean, Divine Dr. Tang, said Li Kai excitedly. I'll take my mother to Shanghai right away. Is that your cell number? Where can we find you when we arrive in Shanghai? That was my cell number just now, said Tan Xiu. Also, give me a call when you're about to arrive in Shanghai. I'll send someone to pick you up at the airport or the train station. That's great. Thank you, Divine Dr. Tang. You're a good man, said Li Kai with a grateful face. Treating and saving people is what I should do, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Alright, that's all. Let's talk about it later. Having said that. After that, Tan Xiu directly hung up the phone and turned to look at Mu Weining at the side. He found that she wanted to say something but hesitated, so he immediately said with a smile, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "I'm just curious about what kind of heavy gift they will give you if you cure their disease," said Mu Weining with a chuckle. "I just thought that you would ask them about it on the phone. After all, they repeatedly mentioned that they will give you a heavy gift in the article on the internet." Chapter 1097. Looking at the chuckling Mu Weining, Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "I don't care what the other party gives me when I treat others. However, through this matter, I have discovered something." "What is it?" asked Mu Weining, confused. "I found that you haven't become an auntie yet, but you already have a gossipy mind," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Is it because you've been too idle recently that you have too many thoughts in your little head?" A touch of shyness appeared on Mu Weining's face. She had a gentle temperament and always looked calm and indifferent no matter what she encountered in the past. But being together with Tan Xiu evoked her womanly feelings, and she unknowingly revealed her girlish side. The leisurely time always passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. Since the news of Tan Xiu's return to Shanghai hadn't spread out, he had been quite leisurely these 2 days without any messy matters to disturb him. Early morning. When the first ray of sunlight rose from the east, the newly appointed security captain, Zhao Fanggang, silently squatted in the security booth and smoked a cigarette. His eyes glanced at the owners coming in and out of the building in the distance. However, just as he thought that it was the same as usual and there was no special situation, a Porsche supercar roared and braked hard to stop outside the gate. Alas, the young master and young lady of a rich family, Zhao Fanggang sighed. He recalled his monthly income of more than 10,000 points and then counted with his fingers how many years it would take for him to buy a multi-million yuan sports car for his daughter. Creak, honk, honk, along with the sound of braking, several supercars speeding from the distance sounded their horns at the same time. Immediately after, a young man with dyed blonde hair and earrings poked his head out of the driver's window and shouted, "Hey, hurry up. Don't dilly-dally and block the road." The driver's door of the Porsche supercar in front was pushed open as Ouyang Lulu, who was wearing a red coat and a red cloak and black leather boots, stepped out from the inside. She turned her head and glanced at the supercars behind her before looking at the security guards on both sides listlessly. She waved and said, "It's a new car. I haven't registered it before. Register it for me and remember to let me pass directly later." "All right." The 2 guards knew Ouyang Lulu and even treated her as a goddess. So when one of the young men saw her, he immediately ran to the security booth. "What's the situation?" After Zhao Fanggang figured out how many years of salary it would take for him to buy that Porsche sports car, his face turned into a bitter gourd as he asked feebly. The young guard grabbed the registration form and said excitedly, "It's Miss Ouyang, Captain. I'll register her car first." Zhao Fanggang asked in surprise, "Isn't the registration done by the owners themselves? Don't tell me you saw that she's pretty, so you're trying to get close to her." "Please don't talk nonsense, Captain," said the young guard hurriedly. "The people living in this villa complex are all rich and respectable people. We can't afford to offend any of them. Especially Mr. Tang and Miss Ouyang. We absolutely cannot afford to offend them. Otherwise, something big will happen." "Which Mr. Tang?" Zhao Fanggang frowned. "Where did Miss Ouyang come from?" The young guard quickly said, "The innermost villas are all Mr. Tang's properties. The security guards inside are all Mr. Tang's men. Captain, did you forget what happened a week ago? That Miss Ouyang outside is Mr. Tang's woman. We can't afford to offend her." Zhao Fanggang was shaken inwardly and his face instantly turned a bit unsightly. How could he not remember what happened last week? At that time, he had just come to report. When he was patrolling inside, he was forcibly stopped. Even though he showed his identity as the security captain, he was still not allowed to enter. As a result, a conflict occurred. He thought that he was skilled and could easily knock down those people. But in less than 3 seconds, he was beaten and couldn't even crawl up for a long time. Later on, he inquired and learned the reason from the security guards. Therefore, he secretly remembered those villas as well as the villa owner's men. Furthermore, he also knew that the owner of those villas had returned from outside the city and was now in the villa. He also heard that he brought back a woman. Little Zhao, how many women does Mr. Tang have? Zhao Fenggang stopped the young guard who was about to leave the security booth and asked in a low voice. A lot. I'll tell you later, said the young guard in a low voice. After saying that, he strode outside the security booth and looked at Ouyang Lulu, who had returned to her car, and then quickly checked the license plate number. What made him frown was that the doors of the supercars behind him were opened one after another. In particular, the blonde young man walked out of the Ferrari supercar at the very front and walked toward the Porsche supercar in front of him. Knock, knock, the blonde youth knocked on the Porsche's driver's window. As the window rolled down, he bent down and looked at Ouyang Lulu with a beaming smile. Then, he grinned and said, Hey, Belle, did you just come back from the nightlife outside? Do you want to have some morning tea with me? I don't have time. Ouyang Lulu rolled up the window in disgust. As the front railing opened, she directly started the car and drove inside. The blonde youth touched his chin and grinned, I didn't expect you to be a little hot pepper. Hey, hey, hey. I'm talking about you. Who's that Belle? Which villa does she live in? The young guard realized that the young man in front of him was not someone to be trifled with, so he immediately said, Miss Ouyang usually doesn't live here. Her boyfriend lives inside. The villa number. The blonde youth frowned. The young guard shook his head and said, We can't disclose the owner's information. Please check it yourself if you want to know. The blonde youth was angry and was about to flare up. But then, he seemed to recall something and pointed his finger to the young guard's door. Then, he quickly returned to the car, started the car, and rushed inside. A few minutes later, the blonde youth drove his Ferrari supercar to catch up with Ouyang Lulu's Porsche supercar. Along with the constant honking sound, just as he drove to Villa number 10, 2 middle-aged men in black suits and black ink masks quickly blocked the road. Get the hell out of the way. Are you playing the Matrix? You're an eyesore coming out so early in the morning. The blonde youth poked his head out and cursed. One of the middle-aged men coldly said, You're the culprit, so I'll spare you this time. But keep your mouth clean later. There are several villas inside that are private residences and you're not allowed to enter. Are you fucking sick or what? The blonde youth angrily cursed. I'm the owner of this Blue Star Villa complex, so I can go wherever I want. Get the hell out of my way, else I'll hit you and kill you. A chilling light flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes. He dashed to the Ferrari's driver's door and forcefully opened it. He directly dragged the blonde youth out and slapped him several times in the face, making him dizzy and disoriented, and then kicked him out. What a cheap mouth. You're asking for a beating. The blonde youth slumped to the ground and felt like he was seeing stars. 3 youths aggressively rushed out of the 2 supercars behind. 2 of them went to help the blonde youth, while the other pointed at the middle-aged man and cursed, Where the fuck did you come from? How dare you fight here? Believe it or not, I'll find dozens of people to cripple you. Fuck off. The middle-aged man waved his hand as though he was shooing away flies, not taking the youth's threat seriously. On the villa's balcony, Tan Xiu slowly opened his eyes. His keen hearing allowed him to hear the sounds outside. However, when he saw Ouyang Lulu coming out of the Porsche outside, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. He had a lot of women around him, but the most annoying one was Ouyang Lulu. If it wasn't for him turning off his cell phone or putting it in his interspatial ring, he would have received at least 1 call and several text messages from her almost every day. Shit, I put my cell phone in my interspatial ring. I haven't received any calls for 2 days. I'm afraid she's calling me. What a headache. I didn't tell her when I came back. She'll definitely flip out later. Tan Xiu suddenly got a headache thinking about it. What made him feel helpless was that Mu Weining was still lying on the big bed in the bedroom. She was too tired last night and hadn't gotten up yet. If Ouyang Lulu were to see her like this, she would probably flip out even more. He silently shook his head and got up to go back to the bedroom. He saw Mu Weining still sleeping soundly and immediately dressed up. Just as he walked down the stairs, he heard Ouyang Lulu talking to the housekeeper. Lulu, Tan Xiu interrupted their conversation and strode over. Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Ouyang Lulu's eyes suddenly lit up and immediately said with dissatisfaction, "When did you come back to Shanghai? Why didn't you tell me?" "I've been back for 2 days." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Well, I have some things to do, so I didn't contact you." "I was about to contact you, but you came." "Humph, what happened to your cell phone?" Ouyang Lulu snorted. "It wasn't in the service area when I called you." "Did you put it in your interspatial ring?" Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised, "My parents gave birth to me, Lulu. I'm starting to wonder if you're a roundworm in my stomach." Ouyang Lulu was very satisfied with Tang Xiu's reply. She rolled her eyes at Tang Xiu and skillfully held his shoulder as she hummed with a smile, "You're the roundworm, aren't you? I don't care. Now that you're back and caught by me, you must accompany me to go out and play." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. As the housekeeper left, he nodded and said, "Since you want to go out and play, then let's go shopping. In any case, there's nothing else to do today. We'll eat, go shopping, and watch a movie. You can choose whatever you want." "All right." Ouyang Lulu finally let out a bright smile and nearly pulled Tan Xiu to run outside. Chapter 1098. Outside the courtyard. Tan Xiu looked at the Porsche supercar in front of him and helplessly said, "Isn't it too high profile to drive this car out? I'm a celebrity now, shouldn't we pay attention to it? What's there to be dissatisfied with such a nice car and a beautiful woman?" Ouyang Lulu giggled. "Besides, you're still young, and being young means you need to be passionate. Let's go. You drive and I'll sit on the front seat." "All right." Tan Xiu wanted to leave as soon as possible to avoid trouble when Mu Weining woke up. Therefore, he directly sat on the driver's seat and closed the door. He started the car and headed outside. However, although the road ahead was very wide, it was blocked by 3 supercars. "What's going on?" Tan Xiu lowered the window and asked. The middle-aged man respectfully stepped forward and said, "Boss, these punks wanted to make trouble inside, but we stopped them. Inform the security guards outside to throw them out directly." Tan Xiu waved his hand. "Ah, that's right. Kang Xia called me some time ago and told me about the matter here. Since we've bought all the villas here, we must do a good job in security. But let them go if they want to go inside. The road belongs to everyone, so don't bother with them as long as they don't attack the villa's courtyard." "Understood." The middle-aged man respectfully nodded. At this moment, the blonde youth had crawled up from the ground and glared at Tan Xiu as though he wanted to devour him. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, he immediately angrily shouted, "Get down here, punk. Your dog just randomly bit people. You must give me an explanation today, else we won't let this matter go." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Hey, we're all adults, can you not be so childish? Also, you look like you're all from wealthy families, right? You should have received 9 years of compulsory education, right? Can't you have some quality? Don't curse people so easily. That will lower your status." The blonde youth's expression stagnated. Then, his face twisted and he angrily said, "What does it have to do with you whether I have quality or not? This villa district doesn't belong to your family, but you're so arrogant and despotic. You blocked our way, and your subordinates even beat us up. Isn't this your fault?" Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He opened the door and stood in front of the blonde youth. With a deep bow, Tan Xiu said with a sincere expression, "I apologize for my men's recklessness. I hope you can forgive them. After all, They are just doing their duty. The blonde youth never dreamed that Tan Xiu would make such a move. Originally, he wanted to use this as an excuse to attack, but now he was at a loss. Beside him, a young man shouted angrily, "Do you think a casual apology is enough to let the matter rest? How can there be such a good thing in this world?" Tan Xiu asked, "Can't I apologize? What else do you want?" The young man sneered and said, "Compensation, medical fees, nutrition fees, mental damage fees, loss of working time. Don't you have money? Can't you buy a few villas here? We won't extort money from you. 1 million is enough." With a strange expression, Tan Xiu asked, "Is 1 million really enough?" "Of course." The young man sneered. Tan Xiu turned to the middle-aged man and lightly said, "You have 20 minutes to put 1 million cash in front of me. Well, there's a good coffee shop nearby. Just send the money there." "Understood." The middle-aged man immediately ran to the distance after hearing it. Tan Xiu looked at the 4 youths in front of him and smilingly said, "Gentlemen, since you want the compensation money, why don't you come with me to the coffee shop nearby? I've been bored lately, so you can accompany me to chat." The blonde youth glanced at the Porsche. When he saw Ouyang Lulu in the front passenger seat, he subconsciously covered his cheek. After pondering for a moment, he sneered and said, "Let's go. Don't tell me we're afraid of you." Tan Xiu squinted his eyes. He returned to the car and directly drove out of the villa complex. Shortly after, the 4 supercars stopped outside the coffee shop. After Tan Xiu entered the coffee shop with Ouyang Lulu, they went straight to a quiet corner. The 4 youths also followed them. "Lulu, I want to ask you something." After taking a seat, Tan Xiu asked with a smile. "What is it?" asked Ouyang Lulu curiously. "Do you know where there's an abandoned factory?" asked Tan Xiu. "It's best if it's a large and desolate place." Ouyang Lulu thought for a while before shaking her head and said, "I really don't know. Shanghai is a place that's being developed everywhere. According to what you said, I'm afraid I'll have to go outside Shanghai to find it." "That's right, Changshi City. I remember that it's a very desolate place at the junction of Shanghai and Changshi City. I once followed Qi Nan there to participate in a competition. I remember that there's a big factory there. I was curious at that time, so I asked Qi Nan about it. She told me that it's an abandoned industrial zone. Take me there a few days later when I'm free." Tan Xiu nodded. "What are you going to do with such a place?" asked Ouyang Lulu. "I'm going to refine tools," answered Tan Xiu. Ouyang Lulu nodded. As she was about to speak, she suddenly heard a ringtone from Tan Xiu's pocket. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He had just taken his mobile out of the interspatial ring and didn't expect that someone would call him. He took out his mobile and looked at it. Then, he suddenly patted his forehead and forced a smile. "I forgot something." After saying that, he pressed the answer button and Li Kai's voice came out, "Is that you, Divine Dr. Tang?" "Yeah, it's me," said Tan Xiu. "Have you arrived?" asked Tang Xiu. "We arrived in Shanghai yesterday afternoon. I tried to call you, but your mobile couldn't get through," said Li Kai. "Can we go to you now, Divine Dr. Tang?" "Where are you now?" asked Tan Xiu. "I'm in the Blue Starfish Mansion," answered Li Kai. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and said, "Send me the specific address. I'll be there later. Let's talk about it when we meet." "All right. Sorry to trouble you, Divine Dr. Tang," said Li Kai excitedly. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu looked at Ouyang Lulu and asked, "Where's the Blue Starfish Mansion?" Before Ouyang Lulu could answer, the blonde youth sitting not far away showed a disdainful look and mocked, "I thought you were a very powerful person. I didn't expect that you don't even know about the Blue Starfish Mansion. It seems that the world of the upper class is not something a bumpkin like you can understand." Tan Xiu glanced at him indifferently and then shifted his eyes to Ouyang Lulu. Ouyang Lulu slapped the table and angrily glared at the blonde youth. Don't talk nonsense here, else I'll slap your face so hard that your mother won't be able to recognize you. The blonde youth originally wanted to strike Tan Xiao in front of Ouyang Lulu to prove his excellence, but he didn't expect that Ouyang Lulu would fly into a rage. His expression immediately turned ugly. He fiercely glared at Tan Xiao and lowered his tone, "You coward who hides behind a woman. You'll know soon whether I'm a coward or not, Lulu," said Tan Xiao indifferently. "Don't be in a hurry to deal with them, Lulu." Upon hearing it, Ouyang Lulu immediately understood Tan Xiao's thoughts. She didn't understand why Tan Xiao wanted to compensate them 1 million yuan and even brought them here. But now she understood that Tan Xiao was waiting to give them the money and then make them pay the price for their arrogance. The Blue Starfish Mansion is located on the coastline in the southeast of Shanghai. It's the top resort in Shanghai, faintly more upscale than the Paradise Manor. "Further, you'll need to drive your car to the Bay Port and then take a boat there," said Ouyang Lulu. Tan Xiao nodded, got up and said, "Let's go there first." The blonde youth got up and sneered, "What? Looking for an excuse to run away? Let me tell you something. I must get the 1 million yuan compensation today. You'll get the money, but I'm in a hurry now, so I don't have time to accompany you," said Tan Xiao. "If you want to stay here and wait, I'll send someone to deliver the money to you. If you don't want to wait here, you can also go to the Blue Starfish Mansion with me. I'll send someone to deliver the money there directly." "Of course we'll go with you. Who are we going to ask for the money if you run away?" Having said that, the blonde youth directly took out his mobile and dialed a number. After his call was connected, he said with a smile, "Young Master Kun, it's Dalong here. I'm going to the Blue Starfish Mansion with Zizai and the others. Well, let's meet up and talk." At the Blue Starfish Mansion. It was a small isolated island surrounded by water with an area of only a few football fields. But the construction here was extraordinary. It had the exquisiteness of the southern gardens and the splash-ink beauty of the northern mountains and rivers. The combination of the two was ingenious and beautiful. Inside a gazebo. Hu Xiaokuan hung up the phone and shifted his eyes to the 16 or 17-year-old girl in front of him. He smilingly said, "Don't worry about Auntie Zhuang's illness, Kai, I know a bit about Divine Dr. Tang. He can definitely cure Auntie Zhuang's illness since he's willing to help. I'll treat him as a distinguished guest when he comes and serve him with all my heart." "Thank you, big brother Xiaokuan," said Li Kai. Hu Xiaokuan turned around and looked at the coastline not far away. His eyes swept over the sea surface as he slowly exhaled and said, "Kai, it's very important to let Divine Dr. Tang treat Auntie Zhuang's illness, but it's best to let him check your body. It's been 9 years and you've always been like this. I'm afraid you'll have problems in the future." Li Kai was silent for a moment and then helplessly said, "Big brother Xiaokuan, I've been checked in dozens of large hospitals both domestically and abroad. But the current medical level can't detect the cause of my illness at all. I'm afraid." Hu Xiaokuan came back to his senses and looked at Li Kai with a straight face. "Kai, Auntie Zhuang's illness has been checked in dozens of large hospitals, but the result is the same. If Divine Dr. Tang can cure Auntie Zhuang's illness, then it won't be a problem for him to cure you. If you don't want to talk to him, I'll talk to him myself when he comes. I'm willing to pay any price." Chapter 1099. At the harbor. Wearing a gray vest and white gloves, Zhao Dongfeng was in high spirits as his eyes swept over the dozens of expensive luxury cars parked in the parking lot on the shore. Divine Dr. Tang, Tan Xiao. This name was like a thunderclap to his ears. At the same time, he also knew that Tan Xiao had another identity, the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss, a man with a net worth of more than 10 billion yuan. He originally thought that he would never be able to have any contact with a big shot like Tan Xiao in his life, but he didn't expect that he would receive a notice from his boss to call him, the chief steward of the Blue Starfish Mansion, to pick up Tan Xiao. Vroom, amidst the roar of the engine, Zhao Dongfeng's spirit was shaken and his eyes glanced at the 4 supercars speeding in the distance. He immediately turned around and gestured to the 2 staff members who came with him, and then strode forward to greet them. Greetings, Divine Dr. Tang. Zhao Dongfeng recognized Tan Xiu the moment he got off the car. He suppressed his excitement and quickly greeted him. Tan Xiu slightly nodded in response and waved to Ouyang Lulu, who just got off the front passenger seat. Then, he said, "Are you from the Blue Starfish Mansion?" Zhao Dongfeng was slightly shaken the moment he saw Ouyang Lulu. He was also a businessman who ran a high-end restaurant in Shanghai, so how could he not know her identity? Upon seeing the close relationship between her and Tan Xiu, Zhao Dongfeng suddenly had a feeling that the two in front of him were definitely a match made in heaven. Divine Dr. Tang, I'm the general manager of the Blue Starfish Mansion. I came here under the order of my boss. The blonde youth and the other three youths walked over with their arms around each other's shoulders. Their contemptuous eyes swept over Tan Xiu and directly interrupted Zhao Dongfeng's words. He came here to pick us up under the order of his boss. Surnamed Tang, you'll know later that the Blue Starfish Mansion is only for us to enjoy, and you're not qualified to spend money inside. I don't want to waste my breath on you, said Tan Xiu indifferently. Zhao Dongfeng recognized the four people in front of him. They were not from Shanghai, but their families were very large. They had just arrived in Shanghai not long ago, but they had a good relationship with the boss. As the general manager of the Blue Starfish Mansion, he was very observant. How could he not see the tension between the blonde youth and Tan Xiu? But he looked at Tan Xiu's indifferent expression and hesitated for a moment. Then, he braced himself and said, Young Master Wu, my boss asked me to pick up Divine Dr. Tang. He'll be very surprised if he knows that you and your friends are here. The expression of the golden-haired young man, Wu Dalong, instantly turned extremely ugly. Zhao Dongfeng's words were like an invisible slap to his face. Just now, he was looking at Tan Xiu with disdain, wanting to show off his superior demeanor, but in the blink of an eye, he was slapped in the face. That shame and anger almost made him go berserk. Zhao, shut the fuck up. Wu Dalong clenched his fists and raised them up fiercely. If it weren't for the two Blue Starfish Mansion staff behind him, he would have already punched down. Zhao Dongfeng's breathing stagnated. He never imagined that Wu Dalong would suddenly turn hostile. However, he could only suppress the rage in his heart due to his fear of Wu Dalong's identity. He forced a smile and said, Young Master Wu, what I said is the truth. You'll understand everything when you see our boss. Divine Dr. Tang, Boss Ouyang, please follow me to board the ship. Our boss is still waiting for you. Tan Xiu gave Wu Dalong a teasing look and then laughed as he pulled Ouyang Lulu's hand and quickly jumped on the boat. Wu Dalong gasped a few times. His eyes then fell on the remaining two staff members and angrily shouted, What the fuck are you still doing? Hurry up and set sail. Saying, he and the other three youths quickly boarded another boat. As the boat rowed, the young man who had been following Wu Dalong suddenly shook his head and said, We seem to have stirred up some trouble, Brother Dalong. And it's not an ordinary one either. Wu Dalong stared blankly for a moment before he tightly furrowed his brows and said with a cold face, How Zizi, just spit it out. Don't beat around the bush. How Zizi forced a wry smile and said, That man surnamed Xiao called Divine Dr. Tang reminded me of someone. He's the famous young Divine Dr. Tan Xiu of Huaxia. It doesn't matter if he's only a Chinese medicine practitioner, but he has two other identities. You've been abroad all these years and haven't been back for a long time, so it's normal that you haven't heard of him. But I'm afraid those two are very clear about it. The two youths' complexions changed and they suddenly recalled something. One of them couldn't help but shiver and hurriedly said, Stop the boat and go back. What the hell is wrong with you? Wu Dalong angrily shouted. Spit it out if you have something to say. What's that brat's origin? How Zizi forced a wry smile and said, You should have heard of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, right? He's the big boss of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, Tan Xiu. Further, he's also the ruthless character of the Tang family in the imperial capital. The Magnificent Tang Corporation? The Tang family in the imperial capital? Wu Dalong's pupils shrunk and a horrified expression burst out from his eyes. It wouldn't have shocked him if Tan Xiu was only the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. But the Tang family in the imperial capital was like a bomb thrown into his heart, setting off stormy waves. But now, which family was the strongest among the big families in the entire Huaxia? Which one had the most imposing momentum? It was undoubtedly the Tang family in the imperial capital, because even the Yao family, a super family in the imperial capital, was annihilated by the Tang family. Wu Dalong's complexion turned extremely pale. He stared at Hao Zizi and asked, "Is what you said true? That brat, is he really a descendant of the Tang family?" "It should be true." Hao Zizi nodded and said, "A friend of mine went to the imperial capital some time ago to attend the 80th birthday of the Tang family's old patriarch and saw Tan Xiu of the Tang family there. I even learned from my friend that Tan Xiu should be the future successor of the Tang family." Hiss, Wu Dalong couldn't help but gasp. As a descendant of a big family, he was naturally aware of the gap between the status of an ordinary descendant of the Tang family and the future successor. It might be a bit troublesome if they provoked an ordinary descendant of the Tang family, but it could still be solved. But if that surnamed Tang was really the future successor of the Tang family, then the matter would be very troublesome. Perhaps, a small conflict could implicate their entire family and bring them down with bad luck. What should I do? Wu Dalong's mind raced. In just a few seconds, his complexion changed in a variety of colors. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go back. Quickly." The four of them hurried back to the shore and looked at Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu, who had already landed on the opposite side. Wu Dalong was silent for a moment and then said, "Zizi, I need you to do something." "What is it?" Hao Zizi asked. "The four of us will each take out 10 million yuan as an apology." "You'll send it to Tan Xiu," said Wu Dalong. "Also, tell him that I've been badly beaten. I coughed up blood on the boat and was sent to the hospital for treatment. Also, tell him that I suddenly realized that I was a bit arrogant before and now I'm very regretful. Tell him that I want you to convey my apology to him." This, Hao Zizi recalled Tan Xiu's identity. He didn't want to face Tan Xiu anymore. If he were to get angry again, he was afraid that he would be in big trouble. However, he didn't dare to disobey Wu Dalong's words. Even if his family had some power, it was still not on par with the Wu family. If he were to refuse Wu Dalong and make the latter hate him, it would be very difficult for him to live in the future. Wu Dalong frowned and said in a deep voice, "What? You don't want to go?" Hao Zizi hurriedly said, "I'll go. I'll pay for it. I'm the one who caused this matter, after all." Wu Dalong shook his head. "I've already implicated you by making each of you pay 10 million yuan. However, this matter cannot be replaced because it represents the attitude of the four of us." Hao Zizi felt relieved. In fact, he was a bit apprehensive when he said that he would pay for it because he didn't have that much money at hand. If Wu Dalong really agreed to pay for it himself, he would probably have to borrow money. On the isolated island. At the landing point of the Blue Starfish Mansion, Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu had just disembarked when they saw a man and a woman coming from the distance. The man was handsome and looked to be about 24 or 25 years old, while the woman looked to be about 15 or 16 years old with delicate features. Tan Xiu recognized the girl at first glance. She was Li Kai, the one he had a video call with and the one he came to see this time. Divine Dr. Tang. Li Kai came to Tan Xiu with a very respectful attitude and hurriedly bowed to greet him. "Where's your mother?" Tan Xiu slightly nodded and asked. Hu Xiaokuan, who was next to Li Kai, was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Although he had never seen Tan Xiu, he knew Tan Xiu's identity. It was just that he didn't expect that Tan Xiu would directly ignore him and go straight to the point. However, in order to leave a good impression on Tan Xiu, he didn't wait for Li Kai to answer and just stretched out his hand and smilingly said, "Hello, Divine Dr. Tang. I'm Hu Xiaokuan, the boss of this Blue Starfish Mansion. Auntie Zhuang is now in the guest room inside and her condition isn't optimistic." Tan Xiu shook hands with him and observed him for a while. Then, he nodded and said, let's cut the chatter since I'm here to treat the patient. Lead the way and we'll talk after I'm done with the treatment. All right. Hu Xiaokuan replied and then led Tan Xiao and Ouyang Lulu inside with Li Kai. Shortly after, they came to the guest room where the patient was. The luxuriously decorated, spacious and bright guest room was filled with the faint fragrance of jasmine. The sunlight shone through the window and shone on the pale and haggard face of the patient lying on the bed. Huh? Tan Xiao furrowed his brows after stepping into the room because he was keenly aware that the temperature in the room was several degrees lower than the outside, yet there was no air conditioner or other refrigeration appliances inside. Chapter 1100. Tan Xiao instantly released his spiritual sense and easily found the source of the cold air. It was the body of the woman lying on the bed. Strange. Tan Xiao muttered and went straight to the bed. He reached out to pull the woman's wrist from the quilt and checked her pulse with his fingers. A few minutes later, Tan Xiao's brows furrowed deeper. He looked at the woman's face with more and more puzzled eyes. She's not sick. She has a completely healthy body. At this moment, not only did this woman not look sick, she looked like she was sleeping soundly. Tan Xiao loosened the woman's wrist and looked at Li Kai, asking, "Tell me. What's the situation with your mother?" "I don't know what happened to my mother, Divine Dr. Tang." Li Kai shook her head. "She's been in a coma for several months. Her life has been hanging by the nutrition needles." "Did anything happen to her before she fell into a coma?" asked Tan Xiao. Li Kai thought for a while and said, "Something happened. My mother had nightmares all day long before she fell into a coma. She almost never had a good sleep. Even when she woke up, she was in a trance and kept muttering, 'Blood.' I asked her about it, but she ignored me." "Blood?" Tan Xiao seemed to realize something. His hands formed a seal and instantly hit the woman's glabella. A few seconds later, Tan Xiao's body shook. A terrifying force struck him, causing him to retreat 3 steps and spurt out a mouthful of blood. "Tan Xiao." Ouyang Lulu's pupils shrunk. She dashed to Tan Xiao's front and supported his arm. Tan Xiao raised his hand to wipe the bloodstain on his lips. His expression turned particularly solemn as he silently shook his head. He then walked back to the bedside and his eyes fell on the woman's body. At this moment, his expression was a bit complicated. He wanted to turn around and leave, but he didn't have the heart to do so. Li Kai was startled by Tan Xiao's situation and hurriedly asked, "Are you all right, Divine Dr. Tang? What happened to my mother?" Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and asked, "Who else is in your family? What about your father?" Li Kai opened her mouth and her expression darkened. Hu Xiaokuan patted Li Kai's shoulder and forced a smile. "Divine Dr. Tang, Li Kai's life experience is very pitiful. Her father passed away in an accident when she was 7 years old, and her parents were orphans, so Aunt Zhuang and Kai have always depended on each other." As expected. Tan Xiao faintly sighed and walked toward the door, saying, "Boss Hu, please help me find a quiet room. There are some things that I need to discuss with Li Kai." "All right." Hu Xiaokuan led them to the next room and personally brewed a pot of tea. After pouring it for Tan Xiao, he said, "Can you tell us about Aunt Zhuang's situation now, Divine Dr. Tang?" Tan Xiao looked up at him and sighed. "If my guess is correct, Li Kai should be more than 15 or 16 years old. Moreover, Boss Hu, you've been tainted by karma. I'm afraid you only have 6 days left to live. In addition, in these 2 to 3 days, anyone who comes into contact with the patient will have bad luck, and unpredictable things will happen." Hu Xiaokuan's complexion changed and fear rose inside his heart. He didn't expect Tan Xiao to be able to guess Li Kai's situation. After a moment of silence, he asked in a deep voice, "What do you mean by that, Divine Dr. Tang?" "The patient is the source of calamity." Tan Xiao shook his head. "Haven't you found any abnormalities in her?" Hu Xiaokuan thought for a moment and said, "Aunt Zhuang's body exudes a cold aura, and the temperature around her is very low." "That's not cold aura, but evil aura," said Tan Xiao. "A lone star, a source of calamity." I'm afraid she's destined to be alone since she was born, and all her relatives will die. Please pay attention to your words, Divine Dr. Tang, said Hu Shaokuan angrily. We invited a Chinese medicine practitioner to treat Aunt Zhuang, not some charlatan. Only the combination of medical arts and mystical arts can perfectly display medical skills, said Tan Xiu. The reason why I'm called a divine doctor is precisely because of my understanding of mystical arts. You've taken the patient to a lot of large hospitals for an examination, so you should be very clear about her condition. The current medical science can't detect her problem at all. Li Kai looked at Tan Xiu as if she had seen her savior. She hurriedly asked, Divine Dr. Tang, since you're so amazing, do you already know the cause of my mother's illness? I do, but it's very difficult for me to save her with my current strength, said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. Li Kai's expression instantly turned unsightly. She had heard a lot about Tan Xiu's magical medical skills and heard that Tan Xiu had cured many patients with incurable diseases. But she never expected that even Tan Xiu couldn't save her mother. I can't save the patient, but you can, said Tan Xiu. But you'll have to pay a price. Li Kai's eyes lit up again and she hurriedly said, I'm willing. No matter how big the price is, I'm willing. Hu Shaokuan suddenly interjected, Divine Dr. Tang, I have a question in my mind. You said that Aunt Zhuang is the bane of all her relatives, so why is she still alive now? She's Aunt Zhuang's biological daughter and the closest person to her. She's naturally the closest person to her after being pregnant for 10 months, sighed Tan Xiu. But it's precisely because of this that there's a special force in Li Kai's body that can offset the influence of her evil karma. The sins of her previous life must be repaid in this life. To be honest, I'm very curious now. What exactly did the patient do in her previous life that even the heavenly Tao and the 6 paths of reincarnation can't erase her evil karma? You said that Aunt Zhuang's illness is because of the sins she committed in her previous life? Asked Hu Shaokuan with a strange expression. Isn't this too inconceivable? Tan Xiu looked at Li Kai and asked, would you like to let me see what your mother did in her previous life that caused her to suffer such evil karma in this life? Li Kai hesitated and curiously asked, Divine Dr. Tang, can you see what my mother did in her previous life? How is this possible? I naturally have my own methods, said Tan Xiu. But I need to tell you in advance that I'll also see the experiences of the patient's current life when I probe into her past life. Of course, it'll be of great help to her treatment if we can figure out the cause and effect of her illness. Li Kai turned to look at Hu Shaokuan with an inquiring look. Hu Shaokuan thought for a while and said with a solemn face, the most important thing now is Aunt Zhuang's illness, Divine Dr. Tang. We can agree as long as it can help with her treatment. All of you stay here. Tan Xiu nodded slightly. Quickly. He returned to the room where Aunt Zhuang was and set up a soul-capturing array in the room. His present strength was progressing rapidly and was comparable to a nascent soul stage powerhouse, so he could also cast some spells and divine abilities. Soul capturing and probing karma. An ordinary nascent soul cultivator wouldn't be able to do it. Even an ordinary immortal wouldn't be able to do it. But he could. After all, he was once a supreme in the immortal world and had all kinds of mysterious and unfathomable abilities in his memory. As the array was set up, Tan Xiu cast an art and a wisp of his spiritual sense instantly entered Aunt Zhuang's body and integrated into her sea of consciousness. Boom! In just a short moment, Tan Xiu's wisp of spiritual sense entered Aunt Zhuang's sea of consciousness. As Aunt Zhuang's memories of this life were constantly seen by Tan Xiu, he felt a strong sense of sympathy for her. It was because Aunt Zhuang's experience was too pitiful and the evil karma she suffered in her previous life was too powerful. Karma. It took Tan Xiu a few minutes to find the karma line and quickly learned about Aunt Zhuang's past life through it. However, what made his body tremble and his heart surge was that he found out that Aunt Zhuang turned out to be a devil cultivator in her previous life. Moreover, she was a devil cultivator who committed heinous crimes. Linglong Starfield, Chaos Demon Sect, Blood Sacrifice. For 2 hours, Tan Xiu was immersed in the world of killing created by Aunt Zhuang. If the hands of the felons on earth were stained with blood and had killed dozens or even hundreds of people, then what they did in Aunt Zhuang's previous life was simply a drop in the ocean and not worth mentioning. Killing. The massacre of billions of lives. Blood flowed like a sea and corpses piled up like a mountain. Planets were swept away and the souls of the dead were roaring. There was no sign of life in the entire starfield after she passed by. This killing, Tan Xiu opened his eyes again with a bitter smile on his face. He was a supreme in the immortal world in his previous life and had killed countless people in the immortal world. But the number of people he killed was far less than Aunt Zhuang. Too many. It was so many that it made one's hair stand on end. Tan Xiu looked at Aunt Zhuang's pale face and shook his head helplessly. If you didn't meet me, you'd have to go through 9 reincarnations to be able to wash away the evil karma on your body. And that's under the premise that your soul hasn't dissipated in the reincarnation. Immortals will create some evil karma when they kill people, but they also have a way to eliminate it. But you don't. Instead, you keep accumulating evil karma and even try to use it to strengthen yourself. This cultivation path is really. In the end, Tan Xiu didn't know how to describe it. She entered the Tao through killing and confirmed the Tao through killing. There were countless cultivators or immortals like her, but none of them had ever gone to the extent of Aunt Zhuang. Even using the word utterly devoid of conscience to describe her was a bit lacking. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu came to the next room and looked at Aunt Zhuang, who had just stood up from the sofa. His eyes then fell on Li Kai and he said in a deep voice, "I've figured out the truth of the matter and overturned my previous thoughts. The way to wake up your mother is indeed with you, but it's not the time yet. I need you, to become different from what you are now. I need your lifespan to increase." Chapter 1101. Increase lifespan. Li Kai stared at Tan Xiu, dumbfounded. She simply couldn't believe her ears. Hu Shaoquan at her side was even more dumbfounded. He looked at Tan Xiu as though he was looking at a swindling swindler. Furthermore, this swindler acted as though it was real. "You heard it right. It's to increase your lifespan." Tan Xiu nodded. "Otherwise, you won't have many days left to live even if you can cure your mother." Bam! As soon as Tan Xiu's words faded away, Hu Shaoquan slapped the table and got up, glaring at Tan Xiu. "Divine Dr. Tang, I respect your Chinese medicine profession very much. I also admire you for being able to establish such a big company like the magnificent Tang Corporation at such a young age. Even if you're from the Tang family in the imperial capital, I still have to say this today. Please don't talk nonsense and joke about Aunt Zhuang's illness." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. A wry smile then appeared on his handsome face. He could understand Hu Shaoquan's thoughts. After all, Hu Shaoquan was just an ordinary person. He didn't know that people like him existed in this world, nor did he know that he had supernatural powers that could penetrate the heavens and earth. Explanation. He didn't think it was necessary. He was a doctor and had his own treatment method. Since he didn't believe it, then he could only see Li Kai's choice. If she also chose not to believe it, then there was nothing he could do about it. That damned woman surnamed Zhuang could only perish. Therefore, Tan Xiu's eyes fell on Li Kai's face. Li Kai was a bit hesitant inside. But after a few seconds, the hesitation disappeared without a trace. She somewhat believed in the matter of increasing lifespan, because she felt that there were countless magical things in the world. It was very likely that Tan Xiu had mastered this method. Furthermore, this trust was not blind, because her own body was also an example that couldn't be explained by science. There was also her mother, a living person whose body temperature was measured by a thermometer and the result was 36.5 degrees. Yet, the chill emanating from her body had puzzled countless medical experts. "I believe you, Divine Dr. Tang." Li Kai's eyes flickered with an inexplicable splendor as she spoke slowly. Hu Shaoquan's expression changed and he angrily shouted, "Divine Dr. Tang was just joking with you, Kai, Who in this world can increase the lifespan of others? Even if it can allow others to live longer, it's nothing more than taking good care of their health. Boss Hu, the patient's family member is Li Kai. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, since she chose to believe me, then I have the obligation to consider the patient's condition. You might not be able to understand the methods I use, but you won't be able to help me with the treatment of patients. So, I hope you can avoid it. Hu Shaokuan was burning with rage. If it weren't for his fear of Tan Xiu's identity, he really wanted to spit on Tan Xiu's face. Aunt Zhuang was indeed not related to him by blood, but as far as he could remember, it was Aunt Zhuang who took care of him, and had taken care of him for several years. Afterward, when the Hu family's business faced a big problem in the early years, it was Aunt Zhuang who risked her family's company to transfer a large amount of funds to help the Hu family solve the crisis. Even the death of Aunt Zhuang's husband was inextricably related to the Hu family. Therefore, even if he and Aunt Zhuang were not related by blood, he regarded Aunt Zhuang closer than many of his relatives. But now, this divine doctor, Tan Xiu, who was called by the people of the country, was unexpectedly joking about Aunt Zhuang's condition. It was really unbearable for him. Looking at Tan Xiu's indifferent expression, Hu Shaokuan took a deep breath and suppressed the anger inside. Then, he said word by word, Tan Xiu, Aunt Zhuang and I may not be related by blood, but she's my mother in my heart. My mother passed away early, and Aunt Zhuang has treated me like her own son all these years. You can ask Kai, I've been spending the new year with Aunt Zhuang and Kai, all these years. Even my grandpa and father sometimes send people to bring Aunt Zhuang and Kai home. I wouldn't have explained it to anyone else. But you're Tan Xiu, so I hope you understand that I'm not an outsider, and I won't avoid it. I need to know the whole treatment process of Aunt Zhuang. Is that so? Tan Xiu glanced at him indifferently and then turned to look at Li Kai. Divine Dr. Tang, Brother Shaokuan is the closest person to Kai, apart from my mother. Li Kai hurriedly nodded. My mother took care of him for several years when he was a child. He's like my family. Tan Xiu nodded lightly after hearing it. He then looked at Hu Shaokuan and said, the medicine needed to treat the patient's condition is very expensive, and it will also consume a lot of my mental and physical energy. Since you regard the patient as your family, the treatment fee of 100 million is definitely not a lot. How much? Hu Shaokuan looked as though he couldn't believe his ears. He looked at Tan Xiu incredulously and almost jumped up to curse. 100 million. Aunt Zhuang's treatment cost 100 million. Even if he used elixirs, it wouldn't cost 100 million. Tan Xiu raised his brows and lightly asked, what's wrong? You think it's too expensive? I can choose not to treat her if you think it's too expensive. Li Kai looked at Hu Shaokuan and then shifted to Tan Xiu. She hesitated for a moment and then said, Divine Dr. Tang, I'll give you 100 million. I'll give you an extra gift as long as you cure my mother. It seems you're really rich. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, if that's the case, then I'll raise the price. As a matter of fact, money means nothing to me. But don't blame me for giving you a higher price since boss Hu doesn't trust me. I want 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares. Hiss. Hu Shaokuan had a bad premonition, but he didn't dare to imagine that Tan Xiu's appetite would be so big. 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares. It must be noted that the total value of his Blue Starfish Mansion was definitely more than 2 billion, yet he actually, Li Kai was silent for a few seconds and then slowly said, Divine Dr. Tang, my family's total assets are 6 billion. I've learned about it some time ago. I'll give you 6 billion if you can completely cure my mother's illness. Can you please not drag Brother Shaokuan into this? 6 billion. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and slowly shook his head. I already told you that money means nothing to me. I only want 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares. If he agrees, I can choose not to prevent him from treating your mother. But if he doesn't, it means that he doesn't regard you and your mother as his family, so he's not qualified to know how I treat her. Hu Shaokuan gasped a few times and his eyes turned a bit red. He stared at Tan Xiu's indifferent expression and regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He wouldn't have doubted him if he had known earlier. Didn't he boast that he could increase people's lifespan? Didn't he say that he had a way to treat Aunt Zhuang? Then let him treat her. It wouldn't be too late for him to flip out if he couldn't. But, 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares. Although the entire Blue Starfish Mansion was his, it was also all the family's wealth that he inherited. The Hu family was a big family, but he also had 2 older brothers. To prevent the 3 of them from falling out for the family business in the future, the old man had long distributed the family's wealth to the 3 brothers. The total assets were divided into 3 parts, with the 3 brothers getting the same share. If he really gave 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares to Tan Xiu, wouldn't his loss be too great? But what if Tan Xiu could really cure Aunt Zhuang? If he chose to give up, his conscience would surely condemn him and he would spend the rest of his life in pain and regret. MD. Hu Shaoquan cursed inwardly and secretly made up his mind. He could earn more money if he lost it, but if Aunt Zhuang was gone, he would lose a mother. Hu Shaoquan endured the heartache and said, Tan Xiu, I agree to transfer 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares to you as long as you can cure Aunt Zhuang. But if you can't cure her? At the side. I'll give the Paradise Manor to you if Tan Xiu can't cure the patient's illness, said Ouyang Lulu decisively. Hu Shaoquan was shaken inwardly and disbelief filled his eyes. He knew that Ouyang Lulu was the owner of the Paradise Manor, but he never dreamed that she would trust Tan Xiu so much. It was the Paradise Club. Although the total value of the Paradise Club was not as good as the Blue Starfish Mansion, it was not much different. Moreover, he only needed to bet 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares. No matter what the outcome would be, he would still win. I agree. Hu Shaoquan clenched his fists and said seriously. A smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He looked at Ouyang Lulu with satisfaction and nodded. Come with me next door, Li Kai. Me too, said Hu Shaoquan immediately. I'm going to prolong Li Kai's life and increase her lifespan. Tan Xiu waved his hand. It's impossible for outsiders to know about this method, so you can't follow me. But you can be present when I'm treating the patient. Hu Shaoquan pondered for a moment and silently nodded. Shortly after, only Hu Shaoquan and Ouyang Lulu were left in the room. Hu Shaoquan once admired Ouyang Lulu's beauty and temperament and even had the idea to pursue her. But due to Aunt Zhuang's illness, he had been helping to contact major hospitals around the world, so he didn't have much time to pursue her and thus delayed his pursuit. But now, this famous flower already belonged to someone he couldn't afford to provoke. Hence, he could only sigh inwardly and silently give up. Hu Shaoquan looked at Ouyang Lulu's stunning face and slowly said, Miss Ouyang, I know you and Tan Xiu are lovers. But is it worth it to use the Paradise Manor to please him? Ouyang Lulu shrugged her shoulders and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. I didn't use the Paradise Manor to please him. If using the Paradise Manor can please him, then I'm willing to throw it to him immediately and let him do whatever he wants with it. Chapter 1102. Hu Shaoquan's expression slightly changed. He looked at the smiling Ouyang Lulu and furrowed his brows, discontentedly saying, You obviously just... Ouyang Lulu interrupted him and smilingly said, I know what you're thinking, Hu Shaoquan. The reason why I said that I didn't use the Paradise Manor to please him is because I have absolute confidence in him. Of course, from the bottom of my heart, I do hope that he loses Paradise Manor. That way, I can shamelessly ask him to support me in the future. Hu Shaoquan's brows loosened a lot. He shook his head and sighed, I really feel pity for you. The Paradise Manor's annual profit should be enough for you to spend. Why do you want to give your life to a man to support you? I understand that Tan Xiu has an extraordinary identity, but don't you think it's more dignified to spend the money you earned? Ouyang Lulu couldn't help laughing and said, I finally understand what Tan Xiu said before. People from different worlds are really hard to have a common language. Hu Shaoquan, do you think you really understand Tan Xiu just because you know something about him? Anyways, let's not talk about these meaningless things. I'm sure you'll understand something after Tan Xiu treats the patient. Hu Shaokuan didn't speak again. He really sympathized with Ouyang Lulu at the moment. It was said that women in love would have 0 IQ. He didn't believe it before, but now he had seen it with his own eyes. Blind trust. Treating her as a god. It was no different from a love-struck fool. In the next room, Tan Xiu walked to the table and quickly wrote a cultivation technique after sitting down. But he didn't immediately hand it over to Li Kai and instead spoke with a profound meaning. What do you think Hu Shaokuan is thinking when he just promised me 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares? Li Kai was silent for a few seconds and then slowly said, there's no need to doubt Big Brother Shaokuan's character, especially toward me and my mom. I know what he wants me to think. He's thinking that he'll lose 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares and will ask me for 3.6 billion as compensation. But I'm telling you, he'll never do that. I believe in him. Tan Xiu smiled and said, what if I really cure your mother? If you can cure my mother, I'll give the 3.6 billion yuan to Brother Shaokuan to make up for his loss, said Li Kai. Giving him a thumbs up, Tan Xiu praised, Hu Shaokuan may be furious, but the fact that he agreed to exchange 49% of the Blue Starfish Mansion's shares for your mother's life is enough to prove that he's a good man. And your trust in him, let me see the sincerity of the two of you. Don't worry. Even if I cure your mother's illness, I won't take his 49% shares of Blue Starfish Mansion. However, the treatment fee of 100 million cannot be reduced. After all, the medicine I'm going to use is very expensive. Li Kai's eyes lit up and she said with a sincere smile, Divine Dr. Tang, you're really a legendary good doctor. Now I am even more convinced that you can cure my mother's illness. Tan Xiu laughed and said, stop flattering me. Memorize this cultivation method for me, and then I will teach you some things. Cultivation method? Li Kai curiously took the paper and seriously read it. Then, she asked in amazement, Divine Dr. Tang, you said that this is a cultivation method? What is it? True Qi. Like martial arts experts. Actually, you're very lucky, and so is your mother. Tan Xiu sighed. I'm really glad that you can meet me. Do keep in mind that you must never tell anyone else about this cultivation method, not even Hu Shaokuan, whom you trust very much. Also, I need a promise from you. Li Kai's expression turned serious and she seriously said, Divine Dr. Tang, I'll never teach what you taught me to others. Tell me, what is the promise you want? You must never be an enemy of the Tang family in this life, said Tan Xiu. Also, you must remember that you owe me, which means you owe the Tang family a huge favor. If the Tang family is in trouble in the future, you must do your best to help them once. I, Li Kai, swear that I'll never sit idly by and ignore the Tang family as long as it's within my power, said Li Kai without hesitation. I'll remember your promise, but I promise you that I'll help the Tang family at least 3 times if I have the ability in the future. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with Li Kai's answer and nodded. Alright, then I'll teach you the cultivation method first. It took 2 hours for Tan Xiu to teach Li Kai all the content about cultivation. Of course, it was also thanks to Li Kai's intelligence that she had memorized all the true essence circulation routes and acupoints. Take this essence longevity pill and then try to cultivate according to the cultivation method I'll teach you. Remember, you must concentrate and be single-minded. Tan Xiu took out a essence longevity pill and handed it to Li Kai. Essence longevity pill? Li Kai didn't know much about this pill, but she chose to believe in Tan Xiu at this moment, so she swallowed it without hesitation after receiving it. Ah! A torrent of heat waves rolled down her throat and rushed into her abdomen. Such a magical situation made her unable to restrain herself from crying out. Don't let your imagination run wild. Just do as I told you before, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. Li Kai hurriedly restrained her thoughts and became focused. Time ticked by. 7 hours later, Li Kai's body suddenly trembled and she immediately opened her eyes, only to smell a foul stench coming from her body. Tan Xiu took out an essence amassing pill without hesitation and handed it to her, saying, "The stench is coming from you, but it's because the impurities in your body have been discharged. I know you like to be clean, but it's not the time to clean your body yet. Take this essence amassing pill and I'll help you embark on the path of cultivation." Li Kai's cheeks were a bit hot. She didn't expect that she was so dirty and had so many impurities in her body. However, she secretly observed Tan Xiu and found that he didn't look disgusted by her stench. Only then did she feel relieved and swallowed the essence amassing pill again. Night came in the blink of an eye. When Li Kai opened her eyes again, her lips squirmed a few times and her eyes were full of splendor. She felt the existence of power. She felt that at this moment, she was better than she had ever been before. Sitting cross-legged in front of her, Tan Xiu took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring and handed it to her, saying, "There are several life essence pills inside. Take one a day from now on and cultivate according to the cultivation technique I taught you. Call me directly after you've taken these life essence pills. That's the time to treat your mother's illness." Li Kai got up and sniffed her nose, saying, "I'll remember your instructions, Divine Dr. Tang. Can you wait for me for a while? I'm going to take a shower." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and waved his hand, saying, "It's getting late, so I won't stay for long. Go take a shower and I'll come back after you've taken the life essence pills." Li Kai hesitated for a moment and said, "It's dark now, Divine Dr. Tang. You haven't eaten anything all day, have you? Why don't you stay here and finish your meal first? I'll ask Brother Xiaokuan to book a room for you. You can stay here tonight." Just as Tang Xiu was about to refuse, he suddenly recalled that Mu Weining was still in Blue Star Villa complex, and he was now with Ouyang Lulu. It was likely that he wouldn't be able to leave Ouyang Lulu tonight. But if he were to take her to Blue Star Villa complex and let her meet Mu Weining, only God knew what would happen. "All right. I'll stay here tonight." Tan Xiu complied and turned to walk outside. At this moment, in the corridor outside the door, Hu Xiaokuan was pacing anxiously. It had been a whole day, yet Tan Xiu and Li Kai hadn't come out of the room, which made him feel like his heart was on tenterhooks. Creak, the door was opened and Hu Xiaokuan's body shook. He looked up at Tan Xiu coming out and hurriedly asked, "How is Aunt Zhuang? Has she been cured?" "I told you before that the patient can't be treated for the time being, else it'll harm Li Kai," said Tan Xiu. "Don't worry. I can start the treatment in a few days," said Tang Xiu. "Then, what were you doing inside all day?" asked Hu Xiaokuan hurriedly. At this moment, Li Kai came out of the door behind Tan Xiu. She didn't even glance at Hu Xiaokuan and hurriedly ran toward the bathroom. This smell, Hu Xiaokuan frowned and subconsciously raised his hand to cover his nose. The thick stench made him want to vomit. He was horrified to find that the stench was actually coming from Li Kai's body. He knew Li Kai very well. She loved cleanliness very much. Usually, even if she sweated a bit, she would always rinse herself and spray a fragrant perfume. But how come her body became so stinky in just a day? "Don't just stand there like an idiot." "Li Kai is fine," said Tan Xiu. "I just used a special method to expel the impurities from her body. It's good for her body." "All right, we're going to stay here tonight. Since you're the boss here, arrange a room for us." Hu Xiaokuan immediately felt relieved after hearing it. However, he was very curious as to how Tan Xiu expelled the impurities from the human body. Could it be that he was washing his marrow and meridians like a martial arts expert? "All right, I'll send someone to arrange it right away. Do you want one room or two?" Tan Xiu turned and walked toward the door of the next room. With his back facing Hu Xiaokuan, he lightly asked, "What do you think?" "Ugh," Hu Xiaokuan awkwardly raised his hand to touch his nose. Although he didn't want to see Ouyang Lulu and Tan Xiu living together, the reality was always cruel. They were a couple, so it was only right and proper for them to live together. What a pity. Hu Xiaokuan secretly shook his head. His regretful attitude was thought-provoking. Chapter 1103. Inside a spacious and bright luxurious room, Tan Xiu took a comfortable bath and changed into clean clothes from his interspatial ring. He then looked at Ouyang Lulu, who was sitting lazily on the sofa. A smile outlined on the corner of his mouth as he smilingly said, "Aren't you going to take a bath?" Ouyang Lulu pouted and said with a dissatisfied expression, "We agreed that you would accompany me to go shopping, eat delicacies, and watch movies today. But it was all delayed because of the patient's treatment. This baby is suffering inside and has no motivation to take a bath." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Why are you acting like a child? I'm going to do something serious." All right. I'll accompany you tomorrow, all right?" Ouyang Lulu deliberately showed an aggrieved expression and immediately disappeared. Instead, she jumped up from the sofa and smilingly said, "Then we have an agreement. You can't go back on your words anymore." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. As Ouyang Lulu entered the bathroom, the sound of running water came from inside. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Mu Weiniang's cell number. After the call was connected, he said, "Weiniang, I'm in the Blue Starfish Mansion. I suddenly learned that Li Kai has brought her mother here and they're staying here, so I came to check on the patient's condition. Can you treat her?" Although Mu Weiniang was a bit sad about Tan Xiu's sudden departure, she was still kind-hearted and asked with concern. "I can treat her, but it'll take a lot of effort," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "That's right, it's too late now, so I won't be going back. Then have a good rest." "I'm afraid I won't have time to accompany you for the next few days," said Mu Weiniang. "I just received a message from the company in the afternoon that there's an important business that I need to attend to." "All right, call me directly after you're done with your business," said Tan Xiu. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu felt somewhat apologetic toward Mu Weiniang. But that crazy girl, Ouyang Lulu, was really too difficult to deal with. If he didn't accompany her well, who knew where she would run to find him? However, after getting along with Ouyang Lulu today, he learned that Ouyang Lulu had been very diligent in her cultivation recently. Her cultivation kept soaring and had now broken through to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Medicinal pills are good stuff, but the foundation is very important. Tan Xiu secretly sighed in his heart. Although he knew that his women and subordinates had advanced by leaps and bounds because they had taken a large number of elixirs, he had no choice but to take elixirs in order for them to grow up as quickly as possible. As for their foundations, as long as they broke through to the soul formation stage and entered the immortal realm with them, he would be able to find a way to obtain some immortal spirit liquid from a mystic realm in the immortal realm. Once they consumed it, their unstable foundations would be completely resolved. 10 o'clock at night. The soft crystal lamp illuminated the other room as if it was daytime. After washing up, Li Kai, who exuded a faint fragrance, stood in front of the mirror and constantly observed her skin. When she looked in the mirror after taking a shower, she found that her skin was different from before. If one were to say that his skin was rough in the past, then now it was as smooth as suet. "Don't look in the mirror, Kai, Tell me quickly, what did Tan Xiu do to you? It's only been a day, but you seem to have changed into another person. Not only has your skin become smooth, but you're also 2 or 3 centimeters taller than before," said Hu Xiaokuan, who was sitting on the sofa behind Li Kai. Li Kai turned around and blinked her eyes, asking, "What did you just say, big brother Xiaokuan? You said that I'm 2 or 3 centimeters taller than before?" "That's right." Hu Xiaokuan nodded and said, "I just noticed it when we entered the room together. I remember that you only reached my shoulder before, but now you've almost reached my chin. You've grown at least 2 or 3 centimeters taller in just a day, maybe even more." Li Kai gulped down hard, and the splendor in her eyes turned more intense. "Amazing. He's really amazing. Divine Dr. Tang is simply a god. I'm afraid there's no one in this world more amazing than him." Although Hu Xiaokuan was very dissatisfied with Li Kai praising Tan Xiu in front of him, he had to admit that Tan Xiu had some means. Such means were simply miracles to him. "Kai, tell me quickly. What did Tan Xiu do to you? Li Kai came back to her senses and hesitated for a moment before saying, I can't tell you, big brother Xiaokuan. I've promised Divine Dr. Tang that I won't tell him. But please believe in Divine Dr. Tang. He's really amazing and can be compared to a celestial immortal. Please don't be angry. I'll tell you something. Divine Dr. Tang has taught me a lot of things. Just the things he taught me are enough for me to call him teacher. Hu Xiaokuan fell into silence. He knew Li Kai's character very well. As long as Li Kai promised someone, she would definitely do it. She had promised Tan Xiu to keep it a secret, so it was likely that she wouldn't tell him no matter how hard he asked. However, he was still concerned about another matter, so he said, Kai, I won't ask about what Divine Dr. Tang taught you, but you must answer another question of mine. What is it? Asked Li Kai. Divine Dr. Tang said that he can increase your lifespan, said Hu Xiaokuan. Is it true or not? Li Kai hesitated for a moment and then nodded. It should be true. Big brother Xiaokuan, you also noticed that I'm really different from before, right? The pills Divine Dr. Tang gave me are very magical. Not only can they change my physique, but I even have a faint feeling that I'm like a 15 or 16-year-old, full of vigor and vitality. Hu Xiaokuan's expression changed upon hearing it and he quickly asked, did he say when he can treat Auntie Zhuang? Divine Dr. Tang gave me several pills. I think they're called life essence pills, said Li Kai. He said that I can treat Mom after I finish taking those pills. Hu Xiaokuan thought for a while and decided to go to see Tan Xiu himself. So he waved and said, have a good rest first, Kai, I'm going to talk to Divine Dr. Tang. I'll go too, said Li Kai hurriedly. What are you going to do? Asked Hu Xiaokuan helplessly. I haven't eaten anything yet. I don't feel hungry at all, but I still have to eat something, said Li Kai. That's right. Have you arranged someone to deliver food to Divine Dr. Tang? He hasn't eaten anything all day. Hu Xiaokuan stared blankly and immediately patted his forehead after hearing it. He let out a hollow laugh and said, it's my negligence. I'll arrange it now. As more than a dozen fragrant dishes were delivered to Tan Xiu's room, Li Kai, who came with them, smilingly said, Divine Dr. Tang, big sister Ouyang, I've really troubled you today. So I asked big brother Xiaokuan to prepare some dishes. Shall we eat together? All right. Ouyang Lulu had a good impression of Li Kai. She threw the white towel she used to wipe her hair to the side and came over to hold her little hand. Where's Hu Xiaokuan? Asked Tan Xiu. Big brother Xiaokuan was going to come with us. He said he wanted to talk to you, said Li Kai. But he heard that a friend surnamed Hao has been waiting for him for almost a day, so he went to see him first. Divine Dr. Tang, I want to ask you something. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu with a nod. Li Kai looked perturbed and a bit of expectation could be seen in her eyes as she asked, Divine Dr. Tang, can I call you teacher in the future? Teacher? Tan Xiu's expression turned strange. You've taught me so much knowledge, Divine Dr. Tang, explained Li Kai hurriedly. I think I should call you teacher to show my respect for you. Tan Xiu lit a cigarette and watched the waiters quickly put the dishes on the table. They even put a few bottles of red wine on the table and then quickly left. At this time, he slowly exhaled a puff of smoke and shook his head. I can't accept you as my disciple as long as your mother is still alive. The evil karma on her is too heavy. I'm afraid that the evil karma will immediately be transferred to you once we become master and disciple. Even if I use my divine power to temporarily cut off the spread of the evil karma, I'm afraid that it will still affect my cultivation. Evil karma? What exactly is evil karma? Asked Li Kai with a puzzled expression. I advise you not to ask too much about it, else it will greatly affect your state of mind, said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. Such an impact will even make it difficult for you to have any achievements in cultivation in the future. Since it's about my mother, then I really want to know, said Li Kai firmly. Divine Dr. Tang, I'm already very lucky to be able to cultivate, so I'm not afraid of how it will affect me in the future. If that's the case, then I'll tell you. Tan Xiu sighed faintly. Your mother committed too many evil deeds in her past life, far beyond my expectations. I have to arrange a feng shui grand array to block the heavenly secrets investigation when I treat her, else I'll suffer great harm. Li Kai's pupils shrunk and she hurriedly shook her head. You must be mistaken, divine Dr. Tang. My mother is kind-hearted and doesn't even dare to hurt a small animal. How could she have committed too many evil deeds? What I'm talking about is what she did in her past life, said Tan Xiu. Like I said before, she was very lucky to meet me, else she would have been affected by evil karma in every reincarnation and would never have a good ending. Li Kai stared blankly at Tan Xiu and asked, what exactly did my mother do in her past life? She killed people. The number of people she killed exceeded the total number of people on earth, said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. What? Li Kai involuntarily exclaimed with disbelief in her eyes. Although she couldn't determine the total number of people on Earth, it was definitely 7 or 8 billion. So, the number of people her mother killed in her past life was more than 7 or 8 billion? How was this possible? How could there be so many people in this world for her to kill? Chapter 1104. Previously, Li Kai regarded Tan Xiu as a god, and the worship in her heart had reached an indescribable level. But after hearing Tan Xiu's words, she really couldn't accept it. Even her trust in Tan Xiu was shaken. In her heart, her mother was the kindest woman in the world and would never kill anyone, let alone kill 7 or 8 billion people. You must be mistaken, divine Dr. Tang. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, I can't reveal too many secrets of the heavens, but I can tell you a few simple things. Your mother was a cultivator in her past life and eventually became a monstrous she-devil. Her past life wasn't in this world, but I can see the scene of blood flowing like a sea and corpses piling up like a mountain through her memories. A cultivator? A she-devil? Li Kai was so anxious that tears began to swirl in her eyes. She desperately shook her head and said, Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. My mother, she. Everyone has their own destiny. You've already started cultivating. Although you can only faintly feel the true essence fluctuation inside your body, you've already stepped onto the path of cultivation, said Tan Xiu lightly. There are some things you can know, such as the existence of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the existence of the King of Hell. Li Kai, this world is full of mysteries. There are only things you can't imagine, but there's nothing that doesn't exist. I need some time to calm down. Li Kai seemed to have lost her soul as she stiffly walked out of the room. She didn't even look at the fragrant meal again. Ouyang Lulu looked at Li Kai's disappearing back with a pitiful expression. She then rolled her eyes at Tan Xiu and snappily said, I think you're too cruel to tell her such a thing. Although it's my first time seeing her, I can feel that she's very simple. I've taught her a shallow cultivation technique to increase her lifespan, said Tan Xiu calmly. If she's diligent and has a good opportunity, it's possible for her to cultivate to the great ascension stage. However, her state of mind is too poor. She's like a grass under the shelter of a big tree, and it'll be very difficult for her to withstand the wind and rain. She can go further in the future as long as her mind and spirit are transformed. Instead of making her stumble in the future, it's better to be cruel to her now. Unfortunately. Ouyang Lulu understood Tan Xiu's intention and asked, what's a pity? Tan Xiu sighed, it's a pity that the sins committed by her mother are too heavy. Even if I can temporarily cure her, I'm afraid she won't be able to live for more than 10 years. In addition, I need to use Li Kai's lifespan to extend her life. Therefore, if she lives for another 10 years, Li Kai will live 60 years less. 60 years? Ouyang Lulu's body shook and she couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air. Tan Xiu nodded and said, Li Kai's lifespan should be more than 80 years if she hadn't met me. Li Kai is already in her 20s, so if I treat her now, she will die immediately. That's why I gave her the Essence Longevity Pill and helped her step onto the path of cultivation. If she can be more diligent in the future and has better opportunities. As her cultivation increases, she might be able to live for another 10 or 20 years. Ouyang Lulu abruptly got up from the chair and shook her head desperately. Aren't you being too cruel to Li Kai, Tan Xiu? Why didn't you tell her before? Tan Xiu said, you don't have to tell her, because even if I tell her, she will choose to save her mother without hesitation. Now that she didn't know, she didn't have much burden in her heart. It was good to live like this. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of fate. Ouyang Lulu was silent. She understood that what Tan Xiu said was right. Anyone who knew how long they could live would have a heavy burden on their heart and mind. Especially a young girl who only had 10 or 20 years to live, she would be unable to breathe under the pressure. Kai air is so pitiful. Ouyang Lulu faintly sighed. Tan Xiu said, perhaps this is her destiny, or perhaps, this is also her opportunity. As for what happens to her in the future, it will depend on her mother. What do you mean? Ouyang Lulu was confused. Tan Xiu said, if her mother had died earlier, I could have taken her as my disciple. At that time, even if I had to pay a higher price, I could have made up for her lost lifespan. I can even make her stronger, to the extent that it's not impossible for her to become an immortal in the future. Ouyang Lulu was speechless. She really couldn't say anything about this matter. 10 minutes later, Hu Shaoquan came to the room and saw Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu having a meal. He curiously asked, didn't Kai come over? Where is she now? She went back to rest, said Tan Xiu. Hu Shaoquan nodded and walked to the front of Tan Xiu. He handed a bank card to Tan Xiu and said, How Zizi originally wanted to see you in person to apologize to you. But I told him that you were tired and had already rested, so he entrusted me to give this to you. A bank card? A strange expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face. Every time someone offended him, it seemed that the final solution was to compensate him with money. I don't lack money, replied Tan Xiu calmly. Hu Shaoquan hesitated for a moment before he forced a smile and said, Tan Xiu, Hao Zizi and Wu Dalong are my friends. We have a good friendship. Can you look at my face and not haggle with them? Those brats are actually not bad at heart, it's just that they've been spoiled by their families. You can rest assured that I'll teach them a good lesson later so that they can keep a low profile in the future. Tan Xiu picked up the bank card and asked, how much money is in it? Hu Shaoquan secretly sighed in relief and said, 40 million. 10 million for each of them. Tan Xiu nodded and said, although it's the smallest compensation I've ever received, let's just forget about it. Tell them on my behalf that they don't bring disaster to their families in the future. Otherwise, let alone them, even their families will perish along with them. I'll definitely tell them. Hu Shaoquan's expression turned solemn. He could tell that Tan Xiu's words were not only aimed at Wu Dalong and Hao Zizi, but also at him. Recalling Tan Xiu's identity gave him a faint headache. He would have dared to provoke an ordinary person, but Tan Xiu was a descendant of a super family. Moreover, he himself was outstanding enough to make anyone's hair stand on end. He really couldn't afford to offend him. Can I discuss something with you, Divine Dr. Tang? Hu Shaoquan watched as Tan Xiu put away the bank card. Then, he took out another bank card from his pocket and silently placed it in front of Tan Xiu. You don't have to give me money to discuss something, do you? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. Don't mention the 49% shares if you really want it. Hu Shaoquan shook his head and said, I'm not talking about the 49% shares. If you really want it, I would have given it to you even if today's matter didn't happen. What I want to discuss with you is something else. Tell me about it. Tan Xiu pointed to the seat in front of him. Hu Shaoquan took a seat in front of Tan Xiu and forced a wry smile. Didn't you say that I don't have much time left to live? Do you think you can help me and let me live a little longer? Didn't you say that you don't trust me? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. I'd rather believe it than not. Hu Shaoquan let out a hollow laugh. You're the famous young divine doctor in the country, after all. If what you said is true, then how much is the card? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. 100 million, said Hu Shaokuan hurriedly. Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, you're really courageous. You even dare to take out 100 million to ask me to help you despite having doubts. Alright, I'll take the money and give you a medicinal pill. You'll be safe and sound for at least 10 years after taking it. A medicinal pill? Hu Shaokuan stared blankly at Tan Xiu with a puzzled look on his face. Tan Xiu threw a life essence pill to him and said, I can tell you that you got a big bargain. But since I've chosen to be a good person, then I'll do it to the end. As long as you take this pill and keep doing good deeds in the following days, you can live for more than 10 years. Furthermore, the more good deeds you do, the longer your lifespan will be. When the good deeds you've done have accumulated to a certain extent, it can even guarantee you to live to a ripe old age. Hu Shaokuan fiddled with the life essence pill. When he tore the wax paper on the outside, an invisible force suddenly hit the back of his hand and the life essence pill in his hand instantly shot into his mouth. Just as he was about to spit it out, the life essence pill turned into a surging hot current in his mouth and flowed down his throat into his abdomen. Hu Shaokuan was scared out of his wits, but he could feel that the surging hot current was not harmful to him at all. On the contrary, as the hot current dispersed and poured into his limbs and 5 organs, his body unexpectedly became very comfortable. Even his spirit was much better than before. A miraculous elixir. Hu Shaokuan's heart was filled with excitement. A few minutes later, Hu Shaokuan felt that his body was getting more and more comfortable. He even had the urge to sleep comfortably, so he bid farewell to Tan Xiu and walked toward the door. Just as he was about to walk to the door, he seemed to recall something and returned to Tan Xiu. He took out a golden card from his pocket and handed it to Tan Xiu, saying, Mr. Tang, I'm going to hold a small auction here tomorrow. I wonder if you're interested in participating. An auction? What kind of items will be auctioned? Asked Tan Xiu curiously. There are only a few items to be auctioned, but all of them are very valuable, said Hu Shaokuan. As a matter of fact, I hold 2 to 3 small auctions here every year. Generally speaking, as long as the items are worth more than 10 million yuan, they can be auctioned here. Tan Xiu thought that he had nothing to do tomorrow, so he directly agreed after asking the time of the auction. On the contrary, Ouyang Lulu couldn't help but roll her eyes a few times after hearing Tan Xiu's answer. Her coquettish appearance made Hu Shaokuan's heart flutter when he inadvertently saw it. After Hu Shaokuan left, Ouyang Lulu immediately said, You promised to accompany me for dinner, shopping, and watching a movie tomorrow. Even if it's just eating, shopping, and watching a movie, it won't affect our participation in the auction. Tan Xiu said with a smile. High-level auctions usually have good things. If I come across something you like tomorrow, I'll buy it for you. Chapter 1105. The next day, Tan Xiu accompanied Ouyang Lulu to stroll around, eat, go shopping, and watch movies. He didn't feel any discomfort. However, he was now a celebrity and many people remembered him, so he used some special means to change his appearance. For the whole day, Ouyang Lulu, who was like a she-devil in the eyes of others, turned into a cheerful little girl beside Tan Xiu, eating, drinking, and having fun to her heart's content. Evening. Tan Xiu returned to the Blue Starfish Mansion with Ouyang Lulu. It was already early in the morning and night had arrived. The Blue Starfish Mansion, which originally didn't have many guests, had an endless stream of them at this time. Looks like they're all successful people. Tan Xiu's eyes swept over the guests around and sighed with a faint smile. What successful people? They're just putting on an act. Ouyang Lulu curled her lips. Real successful people are like you. You won't easily show off your wealth even if you have hundreds of millions of wealth. You won't show off even if you have monstrous abilities. You're not like those people who don't know their surname just because they have a bit of money. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, You're a bit extreme, Lulu. I know you want to praise me, but you don't have to hit others. In today's world, in this era, the standard for ordinary people to prove their success is money and status. Let's not talk about people all over the world, just look at our country's population of more than 1 billion people. How many real rich people do we have? Being able to become someone above others means that they have the ability. As for their shortcomings, who can be a sage without faults? Let's not look at people through the door crack. Ouyang Lulu raised her chin and snorted. In any case, you're the only outstanding person in my opinion. If any of them can be better than you, I'll admit that they're amazing. Tan Xiu shook his head and forced a wry smile. He had thousands of years of experience, so there was simply no comparison between them. However, Ouyang Lulu's heartfelt worship made him feel very comfortable. He put his arm around her fragrant shoulder and walked inside with a smile. Auction. There were all kinds of auctions in all kinds of circles. For example, at this auction, there were some strange things being auctioned. Although some of the things were very precious, most of the people who came to participate were locals of Shanghai. A few of them came from the surrounding cities. Tan Xiu. Under the guidance of the waiter, Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu had just arrived at the auction venue when they heard someone calling his name. This made him slightly stunned and secretly surprised. One had to know that his current appearance had been changed. Unless it was someone very close to him, it would be very difficult for anyone to recognize his identity. Gu Changmin. Tan Xiu turned his head in the direction of the sound and saw Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkue walking towards him. However, he was keenly aware that when the two of them saw his appearance, they were slightly stunned. Tan Xiu released Ouyang Lulu's shoulder and smilingly walked over, saying, "Brother Gu, Brother Jin, I didn't expect to bump into you here." "What? Are you also here to snatch the treasure?" Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkue glanced at each other with a strange expression on their faces. Then, Gu Changmin asked, "Brother Tang, I thought I called the wrong person when I saw your profile just now, but I thought I called the wrong person when I saw your face. But your appearance. The celebrity effect is too good, so I dressed up a bit to avoid being recognized everywhere." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "You know, I don't like being looked at like a monkey by others." Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkue suddenly understood and smilingly said, "Brother Tang, this old brother really admires your low-key character. Which one of the youngsters these days doesn't want to show off and constantly show off? You, on the other hand, are so low-key that it makes people's hair stand on end." Jin Xinkue laughed, "Brother Tang, you're making a fortune in silence. However, I must say, you're really something, Brother Tang. The project we've established together is almost halfway done, yet you seem to have never been to the construction site. You don't even go to my company. Isn't it too much to be a hands-off shopkeeper? Isn't it because of you, Brother Jin?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "If it were someone I didn't feel at ease with, I would have reported 3 times a day." Jin Xinkue was very satisfied with Tan Xiu's answer. After laughing, he grinned and said, "Brother Tang, this big brother feels that it's worth it even if it's bitter and tiring. You can rest assured that our project is progressing smoothly. The funds can start to come in half a year at most. You can count the money when the time comes." Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised, "Working with Brother Jin is really a pleasure. How about this, I'll treat you two to a few cups of wine after the auction is over." "Deal." "It's a deal." Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkue replied with a smile. Immediately after, some businessmen and bosses in the surrounding Shanghai saw Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkue chatting with Tan Xiu and came to greet them. Tan Xiu didn't want to chat with outsiders, so he found an excuse to leave and casually found a seat with Ouyang Lulu in the auction venue. "This kid, he's really..." Gu Changmin shook his head and looked at Tan Xiu's back as he left and sighed with a wry smile. Jin Xinkue squinted his eyes and whispered, "Brother Gu, he's always like this. Else, there won't be any place for us to play in this world." "What do you mean?" Gu Changmin stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. "Don't you think that if his character becomes more flamboyant, there will be countless business opportunities waiting for him with his ability and identity?" said Jin Xinkue. "Which rich boss doesn't want to cooperate with someone with such an identity and ability like him?" I dare say that no matter what industry in Shanghai, as long as Tan Xiu wants to intervene, there will be countless people waving their checkbooks to find him. Gu Changmin nodded without a word and forced a smile. You're right. Let's not talk about his ability. Just his identity alone will probably make countless people want to circle around him and stuff a lot of money into his pocket. Speaking of this matter, I really admire him now. Just think about it. Which one of those scions of the big families in the imperial capital doesn't rely on their status and background to get dividends from other companies and support those companies? But what about Tan Xiu? None at all. Even if someone sends money to his door, I'm afraid he won't even look at it. That's right. That's why he's so terrifying. Jin Xinkue sighed. He doesn't take the initiative to ask for money from others. Even if others take the initiative to send him money, I'm afraid he won't accept it. Yet, by relying on his own ability, he founded the rapidly developing Magnificent Tang Corporation. The amount of money he earns is definitely 100 or even 1,000 times more than those second-generation officials who get dividends from other companies. Speaking of which, Tan Xiu's current wealth has far surpassed ours, right? Gu Changmin heavily nodded and said, according to my estimation, the wealth of the Magnificent Tang Corporation alone is probably more than 50 billion yuan. So much? Jin Xinkue's spirit was shaken and disbelief was written all over his face. It must be noted that the Magnificent Tang Corporation had only been established for more than a year. How could it create so much profit in such a short time? Even if the company's products were extremely popular and the supply simply couldn't meet the demand, it shouldn't be. Gu Changmin was surprised and said, "You're now in a cooperative relationship with the Magnificent Tang Corporation. Don't you know the company's investment in Star City? Just the investment and construction of Star City's new city alone can probably make the Magnificent Tang Corporation earn tens of billions of yuan. Coupled with the several products of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, the speed of making money is much faster than the bank's money printing machine. I estimate the total assets of the Magnificent Tang Corporation to be more than 50 billion yuan, yet I still feel that it's too little." Jin Xinkue gave it a thought and still felt that Gu Changmin's words were a bit exaggerated. He had a certain understanding of the products of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. The output of each product was not much. Although the price was very high, the annual profit was probably only 20 to 30 billion yuan. Adding the investment income of Star City, it was still less than 50 billion yuan. Brother Gu, unless Tan Xiu has other investments, it's impossible for the total assets of the Magnificent Tang Corporation to reach 50 billion yuan, said Jin Xinkue with all seriousness. Gu Changmin asked with a strange expression, "You're really smart, but you're muddle-headed this time. Don't tell me he doesn't have any shares in the real estate business developed by your company? Also, he's the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. Did you forget such an important thing? Also, Hao Lei's boss is also Tan Xiu. How much wealth does the Everlasting Feast Hall and Grand Fortune Jewelry have?" Hiss, after being reminded by Gu Changmin, Jin Xinkue suddenly realized that he had underestimated Tan Xiu's wealth. Not to mention the Everlasting Feast Hall and Grand Fortune Jewelry, just the income from Tan Xiu's investment in him would be a huge figure after half a year. Who knew if Tan Xiu had other investments using the Magnificent Tang Corporation? If he did, then let alone 50 billion yuan, even 100 billion yuan would not be far away. It's like sitting on a mountain of gold. Jin Xinkue forced a smile and sighed. Upon hearing it, Gu Changmin immediately chuckled and said, "Regardless of whether he's sitting on a mountain of gold or not, just his identity and background alone is the luckiest thing for us to have a good relationship with him. I'm going to talk to him about the cooperation when we have supper tonight. I hope he'll be interested." "You want to cooperate with him?" Jin Xinkue was surprised. "Do you have any good projects?" "I've been optimistic about the logistics industry recently," said Gu Changmin with a smile. "I'm preparing to set up a large domestic logistics company. Whether it's the delivery speed or the domestic coverage, I want to surpass the other large logistics companies. If Tan Xiu is willing to join, I'll use his identity and background to negotiate with those e-commerce bosses." Do you think those e-commerce bosses won't give us any business even if they have their own logistics network? Upon hearing it, Jin Shinkue immediately forced a wry smile and shook his head. You're snatching meat from other people's bowl. Those e-commerce platforms will never pay attention to you if Tanshio doesn't exist. Since Tanshio's identity can be used, why waste it? Gu Changmin grinned. Chapter 1106. Tanshio was clueless about Gu Changmin's plan. At this moment, he was looking at the guests coming in from the outside, many of whom were familiar faces. This situation made him secretly look forward to the next auction. Generally, the items auctioned in such a high-grade auction were very precious. Maybe there would be one or two things that were useful to him. There are really a lot of people coming to the auction. Although Ouyang Lulu saw a lot of acquaintances, she didn't get up to greet them. With Tanshio at her side, she didn't want to talk to others. Some business celebrities from several nearby cities also came to participate, said Tanshio with a smile. Also, there should be some people from the occult doors. Just the ones who have arrived already know martial arts. Ouyang Lulu was surprised and asked, why would people from the occult doors come to join in the fun? Don't tell me there are magic weapons they can use in the auction. Who knows? Tanshio chuckled. However, people from the occult doors hide in the city and live the same life as ordinary people. Only under special circumstances will they reveal their identity. Usually, these kinds of people have very powerful abilities. That's true. Ouyang Lulu nodded. People from the occult doors have special skills. They have their own ways and channels if they want to seek wealth. They can get a lot of funds with just a little bit of means. Furthermore, people from the occult doors also have their own social network and social circles. Some of them who are businessmen have joined hands to seek profits in various industries. Like your Ouyang family? Tanshio chuckled. That's right. Ouyang Lulu smiled and said, the Ouyang family did have a lot of shady means when they started their business. Later on, the family continued to grow and slowly washed their name to become a proper merchant family. However, more than half of Jingmen Island's underground world is still controlled by our Ouyang family. Tanshio smiled and was about to speak when a familiar face suddenly appeared in his line of sight. It was Ji Mu from Changshi City's Ji family. What's up? Ouyang Lulu noticed Tanshio's strange expression and immediately followed his gaze and asked. I just found a friend from Changshi City, said Tanshio with a faint smile. Good relationship? Ouyang Lulu asked. Tanshio thought for a moment and said, it's all right. His character was good, and his temper was to my taste. In addition, this kid is also a cultivator, but I didn't expect that he would actually break through to the chi refinement realm in such a short period of time. Moreover, it's the middle stage of chi refinement. Ouyang Lulu curled her lips and disdainfully said, he's just at the middle stage of chi refining. I can poke him to death with just a finger. Tanshio couldn't help laughing and said, he started cultivating much later than you, Lulu. Moreover, you have the assistance of the cultivation resources that I gave you, but he doesn't. Everything is based on one's own efforts. True essence is cultivated bit by bit. Upon hearing this, Ouyang Lulu immediately nodded and no longer looked at him with a contemptuous attitude. Tanshio smiled and said, I'll ask him to come and sit with us. Then, his lips moved slightly, and a sound wave was transmitted. In the auction hall, Ji Mu was accompanying a silver-haired old lady with a very respectful expression on his face. Suddenly, a voice rang out by his ear, causing him to be stunned. He turned his head to look around, and when he saw a person with a familiar appearance, but he couldn't remember where he had seen this person before, waving at him, a sense of mystery arose in his heart. Who is he? Ji Mu thought for a while and then approached the silver-haired old lady and whispered, Grandma, I'm going to see someone. Would you like to find a place to sit first? The silver-haired old lady had a kind and amiable expression. A smile appeared on her face as she gently nodded and smilingly said, You youngsters have your own circle, so you don't need to accompany this old lady. I'm going back to the north after attending the auction today. Jimu was shaken inwardly and asked with a bit of reluctance, Grandma, can't you stay in Changxi for a while? During this period of time, I have been by your side, asking you for advice on cultivation, and I have benefited a lot. I haven't had the time to take care of you for a while. The silver-haired old lady said with a smile, even if we get together, we still have to part ways. I haven't seen your grandma for more than a decade. I didn't expect that we would be separated by heaven and earth. I've been in Changxi for some time now, so it's time for me to go back to the north. Else, those brats at home will definitely cause a ruckus. Jimu helplessly nodded and said in a low voice, then I'll go greet my friend first, Grandma. I'll come back to you later. The silver-haired old lady slowly nodded and said with a smile, go ahead. Jimu slightly nodded in response. He then turned around and walked towards Tang Xiu's direction. Although he really wanted this formidable mother-in-law in the cultivation world to stay, he could only endure the reluctance to see her off since she insisted on leaving. However, the voice just now was very strange. It directly appeared in his ears instead of calling out to him, which made him secretly startled. But, he really didn't know this familiar person, yet he couldn't recall where he had seen him. Friend, you called me. Jimu came to Tan Xiu and cupped his fists. However, his pupils suddenly contracted when his eyes fell on Ouyang Lulu beside Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu pointed to the empty seat next to him and smilingly said, it's me, Jimu. It's just that I don't want to be recognized, so I changed my face. A pleasantly surprised look appeared on Jimu's face. After nodding to Ouyang Lulu, he quickly sat on the other side of Tan Xiu and excitedly said, Brother Tang, I didn't expect to meet you here. To be honest, your disguise technique is really amazing. Although I felt that you looked familiar, I really couldn't recognize your identity. It's just a small trick, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But you're pretty good. You actually broke through to the mid-stage of qi refining in such a short time. If my guess is correct, the old lady beside you should have given you a lot of pointers, right? Yeah. Jimu nodded. Grandma Zueying indeed gave me a lot of pointers and benefited me a lot. Not far away. The silver-haired old lady casually found an empty seat and sat down. Her tranquil eyes glanced at Jimu's direction and was about to retract her gaze when her expression slightly changed all of a sudden. Her eyes then landed on Tan Xiu, who was beside Jimu. That's, the silver-haired old lady observed with rapt attention. A few seconds later, her body slightly trembled and a look of ecstasy appeared on her face. Almost without hesitation, she stood up and walked toward Tan Xiu's direction. When she came before Tan Xiu, she ignored Jimu, bowed and said, Is it really you, Mr. Tang? Tan Xiu got up and smilingly said, It seems that you recognized me. Did you just come from the Himalayas? I've been here for some time. The war situation there is going smoothly, so I wanted to take advantage of this trip from my home in the north to visit my old sister in Changxi City, said the silver-haired old lady excitedly. I didn't expect that my old sister had passed away more than a decade ago. Don't be so formal. Let's sit down and talk. Tan Xiu said with a smile. All right. Under Jimu's dumbfounded expression, the silver-haired old lady softly asked, Can I sit in your seat? Jimu sobered up from his daze and hurriedly gave up his seat, saying, Sure, sure. Please have a seat, Grandma. After the silver-haired old lady took a seat, she said in a soft voice, Mr. Tang, I thought that it would be very difficult to see you again in this life ever since we parted ways in the Himalayas. Never did I expect that I would bump into you here. Those old geezers would definitely envy me to death if they knew about this. It's nothing. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, We're all fellow Taoists in the cultivation world, so it's very easy to meet each other if you want to. It's just that I didn't expect that you would be together with this Jimu brat. Jimu's grandmother and I are old sisters who grew up together, said the silver-haired old lady. I came to Changxi this time to see her. If my guess is correct, Jimu's grandmother should be a cultivator, right? Tan Xiu said with a smile. It's just that I find it strange that none of the younger generations of the Ji family obtained the inheritance. The silver-haired old lady shook her head and said, I don't know about the specific reason. Perhaps my old sister felt that her grandson was the only outstanding one in the Ji family, so she only imparted the cultivation technique to him. Ji Mu, who was sitting next to the silver-haired old lady, hurriedly said, Grandma, it's not my grandmother who imparted the cultivation technique to me, but Brother Tang. The silver-haired old lady stared blankly and immediately asked in surprise, It's Mr. Tang who imparted the cultivation technique to you? The relationship between the two of you. Ji Mu and I are friends, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Ji Mu's spirit was shaken upon hearing this. At this moment, how could he not see that this mother-in-law of his, whom he greatly worshipped, was very respectful to Tan Xiu? It was as if Tan Xiu was her elder. It was precisely because of this that Tan Xiu had a higher position in his heart. The silver-haired old lady nodded with a smile. She then turned to look at Ji Mu and sighed, Little Mu. Having a friend like Mr. Tang is simply a blessing accumulated in your previous life. You must seek guidance from Mr. Tang in the future. He can definitely make you more outstanding. All right. Ji Mu looked at Tan Xiu with fiery eyes. However, he still asked the question in his heart, Grandma, haven't you been away from the north for a long time? How did you get to know Brother Tang? Also, what's the situation in the Himalayas you just mentioned? The silver-haired old lady glanced at Tan Xiu and then shook her head without a word. It's nothing, actually, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. We fought side by side and fought some demonic beasts for a while. You're too weak, so don't ask about the things over there. Wait until you break through to the foundation establishment stage or the golden core stage, then go there to gain some experience. Demonic beasts? Ji Mu was shaken inwardly. He knew that Tan Xiu and Grandma Zueying were very powerful. He didn't know about Tan Xiu's cultivation, but he knew that Tan Xiu was very powerful. But Grandma Zueying was at the late stage of foundation establishment, a very powerful existence. Chapter 1107. As the lights in the hall were extinguished, the soft lights on the auction stage were turned on, illuminating the auction stage. Ouyang Lulu then said in a low voice, The auction is about to begin. As expected. At this time, more than 200 guests had come to participate in the auction. More than half of the seats in the auction venue were occupied. At the entrance of the venue, the doors slowly closed, and a handsome young host wearing white gloves came to a stop with a smile. Welcome to the Blue Starfish Mansion, everyone. I'd like to thank Boss Hu Xiaokuan of the Blue Starfish Mansion for providing this auction venue. I'm Cheng Huan, the auctioneer of today's auction. Having said that, he slightly paused and then pointed to the projector screen that had just been turned on and smilingly said, This is the list of items to be auctioned in today's auction. I believe that all of you must have inquired about some of the items that will be auctioned in advance. I'm afraid there are also some rare treasures that you like among them. So, I'll cut to the chase and start the auction now. The first item to be auctioned is a painting collected by a grandmaster collector. The auction continued. Tan Xiu, who was sitting below, had no interest in the first item. He knew how to draw, and if he was willing to auction his work, it would definitely fetch a sky-high price. The second item was a set of purple clay teapots, which was once used by the imperial palace. Hence, its price was very high. As the auction continued, items were auctioned off one after another. Tan Xiu secretly found that many guests were bidding, but there was no malicious bidding. In addition, the lowest price of each auction item was worth more than 5 million yuan. Ji Mu, have you inquired about the number of items to be auctioned this time? Tan Xiu looked at Ji Mu and asked him across Grandma Zueying. There are a total of 32 items. I only inquired about a few of them, but I don't know about the other items to be auctioned, answered Ji Mu. Tan Xiu nodded and his eyes shifted back to the auctioneer. 8:10 p.m. After the hostess in a cheongsam stepped onto the auction stage again, the auctioneer said with a smile, The next item to be auctioned is a very interesting one. This item had been appraised by over a dozen appraisers, but none of them had been able to identify what it was. The only thing he could be sure of was that this item should be quite old. Please take a look at the projector. On the projector screen, the ceremonial lady lifted the yellow silk covering it, revealing an antique wooden box in front of everyone. As the wooden box was opened, a crystal clear bead appeared in front of everyone. What's that? A look of surprise flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. As he instantly released his divine sense, it quickly enveloped the crystal clear bead. As he observed it, his expression became shocked. Dragon Ball? Tan Xiu's eyes stared unblinkingly at the Dragon Ball in the hands of the ceremonial lady. Shock rose from the bottom of his heart because he could clearly feel that the Dragon Ball was extremely rich in energy. Moreover, it was not an ordinary Dragon Ball, but an ancient divine Dragon Ball. On Earth, how could there be an ancient divine Dragon Ball? When he was in the immortal world, he once obtained a dragon pearl of an ancient divine dragon, but he had to pay a huge price to obtain it. It was also because of the huge energy essence contained in that Dragon Ball that he finally broke through the shackles and became a supreme in the immortal world. Grandma Zueying had been paying attention to Tan Xiu. At this time, she noticed the strange expression on Tan Xiu's face and her expression immediately moved. Her eyes lingered on the Dragon Ball for more than 10 seconds before she asked in a low voice, "Do you know what this thing is, Mr. Tang?" Tan Xiu nodded without a word and glanced at her. "It's a good thing." "What good thing is it?" asked Grandma Zueying hurriedly. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and waited for the auction to begin. He wasn't afraid that Grandma Zueying would compete with him for this Dragon Ball since she knew how powerful he was. Since she already knew that it was a good thing, he wouldn't be polite to her if she dared to fight for it. He was determined to get this Dragon Ball. With a bright smile, the auctioneer said, "More than a dozen appraisers may not be able to judge what this Dragon Ball is, but an ancient object is always a good thing. What's more, this Dragon Ball is crystal clear and almost comparable to a luminescent pearl, so the starting bid is 5 million. Guests who want to get this Dragon Ball must increase the bid by at least 100,000 yuan each time, 5 million. A Dragon Ball? More than 200 guests came to participate in the auction. Half a minute after the auctioneer's voice faded away, none of them made a bid. It was because they didn't know what this thing was. After all, there were many good things in the world, so who could tell whether it was a treasure or not? If it was a trash, spending 5 million yuan would make them feel depressed. 1 million. Finally, an old man wearing reading glasses and a flowery coat raised the number plate placed next to him. When he saw the surrounding people looking at him, he immediately smiled and said, 5 million isn't that expensive. I'll just take it as a stroke of luck. Maybe it's a good thing. The auctioneer secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard someone bid. He had presided over many auctions and had many auction items that failed to be auctioned in the auction. But he had never encountered such a situation today. If something failed to be auctioned, it would affect his auction. Therefore, with a smile on his face, the auctioneer gave the old man a thumbs up and praised, "This old mister really has a discerning eye. Maybe this Dragon Ball is a great treasure." After all, those appraisers said that it's worth more than 5 million, which proves that it's not a common object. Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone else who wants to increase the bid? If there isn't, then this item, which might be a heavenly treasure, will be in that old man's pocket. 5 million. As the auctioneer's voice faded away, someone finally made a bid. However, not many people were willing to bid for this item. After several rounds of bidding, the final price stopped at 2 million. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the bid? Asked the auctioneer again. Tan Xiu slowly raised the number plate placed at the side and said with a faint smile, 5 million. A one-time increase of 300,000 wasn't much. However, his bid still attracted a lot of people's attention. In particular, Gu Changmin and Jin Xinkue, who knew his true identity, turned their heads to look at the Dragon Ball and their eyes instantly lit up. It should be a good item. After all, anything that can catch his eye is absolutely extraordinary, said Jin Xinkue in a low voice. Gu Changmin slightly nodded and said, I have the same feeling. But since he has already bid, let's not join in the bidding. After all, it's just an item. We can't afford to offend him. I understand. If he finally wins this item, we'll ask him what it is when we drink later, said Jin Shinkue in a low voice. All right. Gu Changmin nodded silently. The middle-aged man who bid 6.2 million turned to look at Tan Xiu with a surprised look. After realizing that he didn't know Tan Xiu, he raised the number plate again and said, 7 million. Tan Xiu raised the number plate and said with a smile, 7.5 million, 8 million. The middle-aged man raised the number plate again. 8.5 million. Tan Xiu also raised his number plate. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment. He turned to look at Tan Xiu again and immediately gave up bidding. In the end, the Dragon Ball was won by Tan Xiu at the price of 8.5 million. Tan Xiu also chose to go backstage to collect it, so he returned to his seat 5 or 6 minutes later with the Dragon Ball. At this moment, no one knew how big the surprise in Tan Xiu's heart was. The Dragon Ball of an ancient divine dragon contained a huge amount of energy. Let alone 8.5 million, even if all the money in the banks on Earth were added up, it still wouldn't be as precious as this Dragon Ball. Half an hour later. As the auction came to an end, an item appeared in Tan Xiu's eyes again. When he saw the appearance of the item on the projector and heard the host's speech, a murderous glint flashed in his eyes. It was a frisbee. The high-tech aircraft developed by the magnificent Tang Corp had never been sold to the public except for trading it to the military. But now, a frisbee unexpectedly appeared here in this auction. It made Tan Xiu instantly realize that if it wasn't a problem within the military, then it must be a problem with someone in the magnificent Tang Corporation. I've explained all its energy efficiency clearly. Now, I'll announce its base price of 10 million. Each bid must be at least 1 million. The host said with a smile. Wait. Tan Xiu straightly got up from his seat. Under the watchful eyes of the host and more than 200 guests, he strode to the auction stage. His cold eyes swept over the 200 guests and immediately said in a deep voice, "This item is very interesting, and I'm determined to get it today. No matter how much you bid, I'll add 1 million to it." However, the host's expression greatly changed and shock could be seen in his eyes. He looked at Tan Xiu's cold expression and hurriedly said, "Sir, you must consider it carefully. If the guests bid too high, I'm afraid it will lead to you." Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt him and indifferently said, "Don't worry. No one dares to bid today, else they'll be making things difficult for me. I know my current behavior will offend some people, but this thing is too important. Whoever dares to compete with me will have a miserable end." An old man in the second row frowned and unhappily said, "Young man, don't be too arrogant. Even if you have some money, don't treat us as poor people. An auction of this level is not the place for you to show off your abilities." Tan Xiu sneered and said, "Do you want to see if I'm showing off or not?" Chapter 1108. In the fifth row. Gu Changmin directly got up from his chair and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, since he wants to buy this thing, Gu Changmin, also hope that others won't compete with him. Otherwise, it's tantamount to making an enemy out of me." In an instant, the entire venue was in an uproar, and many people were shocked as they discussed among themselves. What's going on? How come Gu Changmin jumped out to support a young man at this time? Who's this young man? How is this possible? Is Gu Changmin out of his mind? Whoever stands out at this time is tantamount to making an enemy out of everyone present. He's a businessman, isn't he afraid of offending all the rich people in Shanghai and the nearby cities? This is weird. What's the origin of this young man? How can he get Gu Changmin's support? Is he Gu Changmin's illegitimate son outside? There's definitely something fishy going on. That aero glider is a special thing. I didn't expect that someone would jump out to take it for himself before anyone even started bidding. Let's wait and see. I'm not afraid that Gu Changmin dares to make an enemy out of everyone." The old man in the second row had an angry look on his face. He knew Gu Changmin and even had some friendship with him. But he never imagined that Gu Changmin would actually jump out to support that arrogant and unruly young man at this time. What did he mean by that? Did he want to go against him? Even if Gu Changmin's Dingshan Media Group was powerful, he wasn't someone to be trifled with. He could absolutely suppress Gu Changmin with his wealth and connections. Boss Gu, I hope you know what you're doing. That brat is clearly going against everyone present, yet you jumped out now. Do you want to tear all pretense of cordiality with all the guests present? The old man pondered for a moment and indifferently said. Gu Changmin glanced at Tan Xiu and slowly said, I told you that whoever goes against him will be my enemy. Since he wants this thing, no one can take it away today. The old man suddenly stood up and coldly said, Gu Changmin, you're not qualified to say that. Everyone present knows that this arrow glider is a good thing. Don't tell me you're colluding with him. Do you want to take such a good thing for yourself? At this moment, Jin Xinkue directly stood up and indifferently said, if Gu Changmin is not qualified to say it, then count me in. Although I, Jin Xinkue, am not a powerful person, I will say it here. If anyone dares to snatch the flying disc from him today, they will be my enemy. Ji Mu looked at Tan Xiu with a bit of worship in his eyes. He then stood up and said in a clear voice, count my Ji family in Changxi City. Whoever makes an enemy of him will be making an enemy of my Changxi Ji family. Although my Ji family is nothing in Shanghai, I believe that we can still bite some hard bones if we shed all pretense of cordiality and risk our lives. At this time, Ouyang Lulu also stood up and indifferently said, what about my Jingmen Island's Ouyang family? Granny Zhuang smiled faintly and said, this old one hasn't left the north for many years. I don't know how much those brats in my family have done, but I'll still say something. Whoever dares to go against Mr. Tang will be my enemy against the Shin family in the north. In the venue, everyone was shocked. Their eyes sparkled with disbelief as they looked at the people who stood up in disbelief. Jin Xinkue, the Jinda Real Estate's boss. Gu Changmin, the Dingshan Media's boss. Changxi's Ji family. Jingmen Island's Ouyang family. The famous Shin family in the north. At this moment, everyone's mind was shrouded in a thick fog. They never dreamed that things would turn out like this. Who was that young man? Who exactly was he? To think that he could make so many big bosses and families support him without hesitation. In the second row, the old man's expression turned extremely unsightly and disbelief could be seen in his eyes. He didn't expect such a situation to turn out like this. Suddenly, in the corner of the back row of the venue, a deep and resounding voice sounded, this brother Tang on the auction stage is a sworn friend of mine, Miao Wentong. Whoever dares to go against him is the same as going against my Haiqing province's Miao family. If you want to play, then let's fight to the death. 10 seconds later, another voice sounded, I may not know this little brother on the auction stage, but Miss Ouyang of Jingmen Island's Ouyang family is my sister-in-law. Whoever makes my sister-in-law unhappy will also make my imperial capital's Tang family unhappy. Haiqing province's Miao family. Imperial capitals. Tang family. In a flash, more than 200 guests in the auction venue were shocked by the identity of these two people and felt dizzy. The Haiqing province's Miao family was still alright. Although their family was very powerful, the people present were not particularly afraid of them. But the imperial capital's Tang family was simply a behemoth. Who would dare to provoke them? On the auction stage, Tan Xiu didn't expect that Miao Wentong would also appear here. What surprised him the most was that Tang Wei was also here. He even sat in the last row in a low-key manner with only a beautiful girl accompanying him. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, I'm very grateful for so many people's support. But today's matter can be solved by me alone. Please take a seat, everyone. I still have something to say. As everyone took their seats, Tan Xiu looked at the backstage and indifferently said, I don't know who you are, but you should have seen what happened here. I hope you can stand up and answer some of my questions. In an instant, the venue turned deathly silent as everyone looked around, wanting to see who the person in charge of this auction was. Cough, cough, In the 10th row of the venue, an old man in a Chinese tunic suit and reading glasses stood up and said with a faint smile, "Little brother, your surname is Tang? Are you also from the imperial capital's Tang family? Who I am isn't important. What's important is how do I address you?" Tan Xiu said indifferently. The old man slowly left his seat and smilingly walked to the front of Tan Xiu on the auction stage. He carefully observed Tan Xiu a few times before replying with a smile, "My surname is Mei, Mei as in plum blossom. You can call me Old Mei. How I address you is my own business," said Tan Xiu lightly. "You need to answer a few of my questions now. Else, you'll be out of luck, and so will the force behind you." The smile on the old man's face receded and he narrowed his eyes. "What if I don't believe you?" Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. After his call was picked up, he said in a deep voice, "Something happened, Blue Starfish Mansion. I hope you can send someone to seal this place within half an hour. Also, block all communication signals here as fast as possible." "Understood." Duan Mulin's deep voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu hung up and looked at the old man whose expression slightly changed. He then shouted in a deep voice, "Come out, Hu Xiaokuan." Hu Xiaokuan had been sitting in the auction venue in a low-key manner among the crowd. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's shout, he knew Tan Xiu's identity and hurriedly got up. He forced a smile and said, "Tang, what's your order?" "Inform the Blue Starfish Mansion security guards to seal off all the exits of this island for the time being," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "I'll give you the authority to kill anyone who dares to break through and leave." Hu Xiaokuan's expression changed and he hesitated. "That's not a good idea, is it?" "They are all. I don't give a damn who they are," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. "Do as I say immediately if you don't want to be convicted of treason." "Treason, treason." Hu Xiaokuan shuddered. He didn't doubt Tan Xiu's ability. After all, he had the backing of the entire Tang family, and no one could predict what the Tang family could do. Immediately, he quickly grabbed his mobile, dialed a cell number and shouted in a deep voice, "Inform all the security guards to seal off the entire Blue Starfish Mansion. Block every exit on the island and don't let anyone leave. If anyone dares to break through, kill them." At this moment, everyone was shocked. The word treason from Tan Xiu made them shudder with fear, realizing that Tan Xiu's identity was probably very terrifying. Otherwise, the Blue Starfish Mansion's boss wouldn't be so afraid of him. Who was he? Who the hell was he? The old man in the second row suddenly got up and shouted, "Young man surnamed Tang, you've gone too far this time. If you could reveal your identity to us, we might be able to consider this matter. However, you actually threatened us and even restricted our freedom. This is a serious crime. It's not up to you to say whether it's a felony or not," sneered Tan Xiu. "But I have the final say." With that said, Tan Xiu took out the green book from his interspatial ring and showed it to the cold and indifferent elder Mei in front of him. Then, he said in a deep voice, "Answer my first question. Who commissioned you to auction this aero glider in this auction?" Elder Mei's pupils shrunk and a bitter expression appeared on the corner of his mouth. He shook his head and said, "The other party asked us to keep his identity a secret, so we didn't investigate him. But he's a young man in his late 20s. He has dark skin and a soldier's aura." A soldier's aura. Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu immediately realized where the problem was. After taking a deep breath, Tan Xiu asked again, "Who are the people who have touched this aero glider? Please bring all of them here for me." "Can you do it?" "I'll arrange it right away," said Elder Mei with a forced smile. A few minutes later, more than 200 guests in the auction venue finally realized the seriousness of this matter. Many of them took out their mobile phones and were ready to make a call to pass the news and find a way to protect themselves. What happened today was too strange, so they had no choice but to face it seriously. "What's going on? Why can't I get through the phone? No signal." "He just said that he ordered someone to block the signal here." "Did it really get blocked?" Who the hell is he? Who has the ability to make the communication department block the signal here with just a phone call? Damn. Are we going to be trapped here forever?